So I woke up feeling like someone ran me over with a truck, then backed up and did it again. Everything hurt. My whole body was screaming at me before I even opened my eyes. When I finally did open them, total darkness. I was in some cave. And not a cute little camping cave, no. This thing was half the size of a football field, filled with random junk, rocks, sticks, animal bones, fur. Real cozy stuff. I dragged myself toward the only light I could see, hugging the cave wall like it was my best friend. The sunlight almost blinded me, but when I finally looked outside, my brain just stopped. Giant trees. Everywhere. Grass tall enough to swallow my ankles. Everything looked supersized, like nature hit the 200% zoom button. Then it hit me. I was hiking. There was an earthquake. I fell off a cliff. So this must be the bottom of that cliff, right? Nope. Looked around. No cliff anywhere. Just trees, trees, and more trees. Then I looked down at myself and nearly lost it. My hiking gear? Gone. Instead, I was rocking a lovely fur outfit. Very fashionable. Very caveman. That's when the bad feeling in my stomach upgraded to full-blown panic. The giant bones in the cave. The oversized plants. The fur clothing. Did I just time travel to prehistoric times? Before I could even process that fun little thought, someone came running at me yelling complete nonsense. Goalie, goalie, jibbery jabbery. It was a person, well, sort of, wearing furs, waving a sharpened stick, with the wildest hair I'd ever seen. When she got closer, my jaw hit the floor. She was actually a girl, maybe 17-ish, about 5'7", with bright red hair and fair skin. Pretty face, kind of tough looking but in a cool way. And then I noticed the weird parts. Golden eyes, vertical pupils, fangs, and on top of her head, 2 round, fuzzy ears. Tiger ears. Actual tiger ears just sitting there on her skull like that was perfectly normal. My brain, being very helpful in a crisis, immediately went. So basically, she's a tiger ear anime girl. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. This is fine. She was waving her hand in my face and yelling more gibberish at me. I understood exactly 0% of it. So I just shrugged. What else could I do? She frowned, her little tiger ears twitching with annoyance, muttered something, then grabbed my arm and started dragging me down the mountain. And when I say dragging, I mean it. To her, I weighed about as much as a pool noodle. The path down was steep and terrifying, and I had no shoes on. I tried to tell her to slow down using dramatic hand gestures. She seemed to get it. She let go of my arm. I relaxed for exactly 1 second. Then she squatted down, scooped me up, and threw me over her shoulder like a sack of potatoes. And took off running twice as fast. Down a cliff. Like it was a sidewalk. Wind was blasting into my mouth so hard I couldn't even scream properly. But what I saw on the way down made me forget about screaming entirely. People, or whatever these were, all heading the same direction. Some had horns growing out of their heads. Some had wings on their backs. Some had actual tails. Their hair was every color of the rainbow. Red, green, blue, brown. Okay, so this isn't even regular prehistoric times. Where am I? Tiger Girl dropped me off at some rickety wooden platform where a huge crowd was gathering. Everyone sounded stressed. From what I could gather through context clues and general vibes, some kind of shaman or witch doctor, was dying. The tribe leader had gone hunting for some monster's blood to save her, but it wasn't going to be enough. Now they needed to find a new shaman, except nobody in the whole tribe had the talent for it. Things were looking pretty grim for everyone. And there I was. No shoes, no language skills, no idea what planet I was even on anymore, wearing dead animal skin, just vibing on a tiger girl's shoulder 2 minutes ago. Great start to my new life. So there I was, still draped over Tiger Girl's shoulder like a human backpack, when this ancient old man hobbled onto the wooden stage. He looked like death's waiting room, face white as paper, shaking like a leaf, leaning on a giant bone cane. It took him 4 whole minutes to walk 6 meters. Nobody rushed him. Nobody even breathed. The whole crowd just watched him like he was made of glass. Then everyone started screaming, "W! Woo! W!" like he was a rock star. Tiger Girl joined in too, and let me tell you, for someone her size, she roared like an actual tiger. My ears almost fell off. The old shaman waved everyone quiet, coughed twice, and basically said, "Let's do this." His assistant tried to warn him about his health, but he shut that down fast. Everyone in the crowd went dead still and serious. I wanted to ask Tiger Girl to put me down, but the mood was so intense I kept my mouth shut. Then the old man slammed his bone cane into the ground, and, I kid you not, it started glowing. Blue light crawled up the bone like electric veins. Meanwhile, the shaman looked like every drop of life was draining out of him to power this thing. My brain just short-circuited. First, I thought I traveled to caveman times. Then I found out everyone here is part animal. And now there's magic? What kind of universe did I fall into? The shaman gathered all his strength, swung the glowing cane forward, and launched a blue glowing orb into the crowd. It floated from person to person, searching for someone worthy of becoming the next shaman. Every time it passed someone, their eyes lit up with hope, then went dark with disappointment when the orb kept moving. The whole tribe started falling apart emotionally. People were crying, cursing some enemy called the Black Monkey Tribe, who apparently attacked them and wounded the shaman in the first place. Without a new shaman, their tribe, the Green Sparrow Tribe, was finished. Game over. Up on the stage, the dying old man started giving his final instructions to his assistant. Go north, find the Vine Tribe. They're nice people, they'll take you in. Keep an eye on that hothead warrior chief. Don't let anyone starve. He was literally writing his will out loud. Then his eyes started closing, and he mumbled something about the Earth Mother calling him to sleep. Just when everything seemed completely hopeless and the orb had passed through the entire crowd without choosing anyone, the assistant suddenly screamed in the old man's ear. Wake up. The orb is doing something. The blue orb suddenly went from lazy floating to full-speed missile mode, rocketing toward the edge of the crowd. And standing right at that edge, in the exact spot where the orb was heading, Tiger Girl, the one currently using me as a shoulder accessory. Great. Just great. So the magic orb was zooming straight at Tiger Girl. Everyone was hyped. She was hyped. Her little tiger ears were probably doing backflips. She was about to become the next shaman and save the whole tribe. Then the orb stopped right in front of her face. Just hovered there, like it changed its mind mid-flight. Nah, not you. It did a U-turn and slammed directly into me, the guy dangling off her shoulder like a bag of laundry. My brain exploded with pain, and I blacked out immediately. 0 stars, would not recommend. While I was unconscious, apparently the whole tribe lost their minds. Who is that guy? Isn't he the random stray Yinlin picked up? A homeless outsider is our new shaman. But panic quickly turned into celebration because, hey, a shaman is a shaman, and beggars can't be choosers when your tribe is about to go extinct. Up on the stage, the dying old shaman was thrilled. His life's work was done, the magic got passed on, the tribe was saved. He started giving his final instructions like a grandpa reading his will at Thanksgiving dinner. Protect the new shaman, he's fragile, fragile. Thanks, old man. Listen to everything he says, his word is law. Oh, so I went from unconscious shoulder luggage to supreme leader in about 30 seconds. Cool. Then the old shaman noticed my face for the first time, since I'd been carried face down this whole time like a sack of rice, and completely freaked out. He started urgently interrogating Tiger Girl. Where'd you find him? What do his ears look like? Does he have a tail? Claws? Tiger Girl reported that my ears were weird and on the sides of my head instead of on top, and I had 0 tails, 0 claws, 0 anything cool. The old shaman started laughing like a maniac. With his dying breath, he told everyone that the tribe wasn't just saved, it was going to become great. He told Tiger Girl that if she stuck by my side, she'd become the most powerful shaman's assistant ever. Then he closed his eyes with a big smile on his face and quietly passed away. So to recap my day, fell off a cliff, woke up in a fantasy world, got kidnapped by a tiger-eared girl, became the chosen one of an endangered tribe, and got promoted to basically shaman god, all while unconscious for the most important part. I didn't even apply for this job. I was floating in pure darkness for what felt like forever. Then suddenly a white space opened up with about 100 weird tadpole-shaped symbols floating in front of me. Couldn't read a single one, but my big brain noticed they had patterns, like a puzzle. So I started dragging and dropping them like some kind of caveman Candy Crush. Every time I got a match right, they lit up gold. The difficulty? Honestly, about elementary school math level. I crushed the whole thing in 3 minutes flat. Smartest thing I've done since arriving in this nightmare. Then the golden wall of symbols exploded and shot straight into my body like a data download from the universe's worst Wi-Fi. Before I could even figure out what just happened, everything went dark again. Next thing I heard was someone screaming, "W, W," right next to my ear. I opened my eyes and got instantly surrounded by a mob of excited beast people cheering like I just won the Super Bowl. Tiger Girl was right there, her fuzzy little ears twitching up and down. They were so round and soft-looking that my hand moved completely on its own. I just reached out and pet them. She froze. Then she leaned into it like a cat getting scratched behind the ears. Then she realized what she was doing, turned bright red, and yelled at me. But angry Tiger Girl with puffed-up cheeks was somehow even cuter than normal Tiger Girl. 0 intimidation points. The old guy with green hair, Wood Green or something, started explaining the situation, and here's where my brain completely broke. I understood every single word he said. Not just understood, when I opened my mouth, perfect caveman language came out. The magic download apparently included Rosetta Stone, prehistoric edition. But the actual information? That's what killed me. "You are now our shaman," he said. Then he dropped to his knees. Then everyone dropped to their knees. 50-something people bowing to the ground screaming, "W, woo, W," so loud they scared birds out of the trees a mile away. I just stood there twitching. I need a minute. Back on Earth, I never even made junior manager at my company. Now I'm suddenly the spiritual leader of an endangered fantasy tribe? I counted heads, 37 people here, plus 15 or 16 out hunting. That's over 50 mouths to feed. 2 whole elementary school classes worth of half-animal people, all looking at me for answers. The pressure hit me like a truck. Then Wood Green walked up and hit me with the big question. "So, shaman, what do we do now?" I looked around. Nobody had eaten lunch. It was the middle of the day. My first ever executive decision as supreme shaman leader of the Green Sparrow tribe was, let's eat. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is leadership. My first order as supreme shaman was, let's eat. Real groundbreaking leadership stuff. Everyone pulled out their meat and held it up with both hands for me to pick first. Apparently being the shaman means you get VIP buffet access. The guy I picked from grinned like he won the lottery. Everyone else looked crushed. Tiger Girl's ears literally drooped down like a sad puppy. She thought I'd pick her since I was standing right next to her. Sorry, Tiger Girl. Nothing personal. Then I told everyone to dig in. And what happened next nearly made me lose my appetite before I even started. They all just bit straight into the raw meat. No cooking, no fire, just teeth into cold, bloody, uncooked animal flesh like it was a normal Tuesday afternoon snack. I grabbed Tiger Girl before she could do the same and asked the obvious question, "Do you people not have fire?" Turns out they used to, but they fled from their homeland in a hurry and lost most of their fire starters. Then it rained and killed the rest. Their brilliant backup plan was to wait for lightning to strike a tree and grab the flames from that. Outstanding fire management, 10 out of 10. I told Wood Green to make everyone stop eating raw meat because I was about to make fire. His eyes practically popped out of his skull. He started screaming about magic. "You can do shaman spells already?" The whole tribe whipped their heads around staring at me like I was about to pull a rabbit out of a hat. I had to calm everyone down. No magic. Just good old-fashioned caveman technology that apparently nobody in this entire fantasy world had figured out yet. I sent Tiger Girl to find dry wood and a bone knife. She dropped everything she was holding and sprinted off like an excited golden retriever. Half the tribe followed her. The other half started pulling out their bone knives and offering them to me like sacred gifts. I picked the sharpest one and got to work, shaved animal hair off some furs, grabbed handfuls of dry grass, and started prepping my materials. When Tiger Girl's team dragged back a pile of wood, I almost cheered. Mixed in with the pile were several pieces of dry pine, the absolute holy grail of friction firemaking. Pine is soft, oily, and practically begging to catch fire if you look at it hard enough. I grabbed a solid round stick, sharpened one end, carved a small hole into the pine log, and carefully packed it with the fir shavings, dry grass, and wood chips. Left plenty of air gaps in there too, because fire needs oxygen, and I actually paid attention in science class, unlike some people in this tribe, who've been eating raw meat for who knows how long. Now I needed someone to hold the wood steady. Tiger Girl immediately crouched down and pressed one end with her hand. For the other end, a new girl popped out of the crowd volunteering. She was tiny, maybe 5 feet tall, with brown hair, a long swishy tail that looked straight out of a fantasy anime, and a single horn growing from the middle of her forehead. Like a rhino, but cute. A rhino horn lowly, basically. I looked at her and thought, can this tiny girl even hold it down? She answered that question by pressing the wood so hard it sank halfway into the ground like she'd just pile-drived it into the earth's core. Then she shot Tiger Girl a smug little look. Tiger Girl's competitive instincts immediately kicked in, and she slammed her end down even harder. Rhino Girl puffed her cheeks and prepared to push again. These two were about to send my fire-starting log straight to the center of the planet. I had to yell at both of them to stop before they buried my only good piece of pine with 6 feet underground. Rhino Girl let go and did this shy tongue-out face like a kid caught stealing cookies, trying to introduce herself. Tiger Girl's ears went flat with jealousy. Apparently these two were rivals competing for the shaman's assistant position, and Rhino Girl was making moves on her territory. I ignored the drama, knelt down, positioned my sharpened stick into the carved hole, and started spinning it between my palms as fast as I could. The entire tribe, all 30-something beast people, stood in a circle around me, holding their raw meat, staring with unblinking eyes, not even breathing. Complete silence except for the sound of wood grinding against wood. None of them had any idea what I was doing. For all they knew, their new shaman was just aggressively poking a log for no reason. So there I was, spinning a stick between my palms like my entire reputation depended on it, because it absolutely did. Minutes passed. The wood powder turned black, but no flame. I could feel the whole tribe's excitement slowly curdling into doubt behind me. Nobody said anything because I'm the shaman and you don't trash-talk the shaman, but the silence was getting louder and louder. Meanwhile, my brain was screaming, if this doesn't work, I'm going to be the shaman who promised fire and delivered sawdust. I will never recover from this. I pushed harder, spun faster, and finally, a tiny wisp of smoke curled up from the hole. My heart nearly exploded. More spinning, more smoke, and then the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life appeared. A baby flame, smaller than a birthday candle, flickering like it might die at any second. I threw myself face down and started blowing on it like I was performing CPR on a matchstick. Gentle breaths. Terrified breaths. Please don't die breaths. Fed it some dry grass from below, nursed it along, and then, whoosh, a full orange flame erupted out of that little hole like a tiny volcano waking up. The tribe went absolutely insane. Screaming, cheering, chanting, WWW, like I'd just invented electricity. I ignored them because the fire still needed feeding. Twigs first, then small branches, then bigger logs, until I had a roaring blaze taller than my waist. Only then did I turn around and give the royal wave. Tails were wagging, ears were standing straight up, every face was glowing with pure joy. These people looked at me like I'd just parted the sea. I told Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl to start more fires so everyone could cook. Wood Green rushed over practically vibrating with excitement, insisting what I'd done was magic. I told him 3 times it was just rubbing wood together. He refused to believe me. Tiger Girl overheard and asked if she could learn too, eyes all sparkly and eager. I reached over and pet her ears again without even thinking about it, and she melted into my hand like warm butter, then caught herself halfway to rolling on the ground belly up, realized Rhino Girl was watching with jealous eyes, and instead of swatting my hand away, she leaned into the head pats and shot Rhino Girl a victory smirk. These two were going to be a problem. I promised to teach everyone fire-making after lunch, and once the smell of cooking meat hit the air, all educational ambitions evaporated instantly. Stomachs started growling in stereo across the entire camp. That's when Wood Green handed me a leather bag, the old shaman's final gift. Inside was a piece of animal hide covered in those same tadpole symbols from my white space puzzle, plus a bone knife and some wooden tablets. I barely got to peek at it before Rhino Girl came trotting over carrying a piece of meat thicker than her own arm, tail swinging behind her like a happy metronome, offering it to me with the biggest puppy dog eyes I've ever seen on a girl with a horn growing out of her forehead. I took the meat, said thanks, and my hand automatically went for the head pat. Halfway there I noticed the rock-solid rhino horn and hesitated. That thing looked like it could puncture a tire, but I committed and patted her anyway. She practically glowed with happiness, though I could tell she was a little sad that her horn wasn't as soft and pettable as Tiger Girl's fuzzy ears. Meanwhile, Tiger Girl was standing 10 feet away holding her meat, watching this whole scene, cheeks puffed out like an angry chipmunk. So to summarize my first afternoon as tribal shaman, I reinvented fire using elementary school science, became a living god to 50 beast people, accidentally started a love rivalry between a tiger girl and a rhino girl by petting their heads, and hadn't even gotten around to eating my own lunch yet. The old shaman's mysterious scrolls were burning a hole in my curiosity. 2 girls were competing for my attention using cooked meat as weapons, and I still had no shoes. Just another normal day in my new life as an accidental caveman king. I bit into the meat and honestly, not bad. No salt, no spices, no nothing. Just pure caveman barbecue. But it had this crispy, tender thing going on that I wasn't expecting. Rhino Girl actually had decent grilling skills. Still, my brain immediately started making a mental checklist. Salt. These people had 0 salt. And I'm not talking about flavor. Humans literally need salt to survive. Long term without it, and people start getting sick. I mentally drew a big circle around, find salt, and filed it under, problems I'll deal after I finish chewing. After lunch, I tried to lay down and digest for 5 minutes. Like a civilized person, but Wood Green was already hovering over me with those eager puppy eyes. So, about the fire thing. I sighed, got up, and told him to gather everyone. Time for Professor Shaman's first class. The whole tribe assembled, buzzing with excitement. They still thought I was about to teach them magic. I demonstrated the whole process again from scratch, carving the hole, packing the tinder, spinning the stick. When the flame popped up, they all gasped and freaked out again, even though they literally watched me do this an hour ago. I asked if everyone understood. They nodded yes and shook their heads no at the same time. 37 blank stares. Right, I overestimated my students. I called Tiger Girl up as my first apprentice. She pointed at herself looking terrified, like I'd asked her to defuse a bomb. I told her she'd be fine and walked her through each step. She was so scared of messing up magic that she moved like she was handling a live grenade. Every little motion was slow, cautious, trembling. I told her to relax about 4 times. She did not relax. 7 painful minutes later, smoke appeared, then flame, and Tiger Girl absolutely lost her mind. She grabbed my arm and started bouncing up and down, squealing like a kid who just aced a test. The crowd went wild. If SHE could do it, maybe this really wasn't exclusive shaman magic after all. Rhino Girl immediately appeared at my other arm, tugging on it with her surprisingly bone-crushing grip, demanding her turn. I taught her next, and fueled by pure competitive spite toward Tiger Girl, she crushed it in under 3 minutes. The tribe erupted again, and now everyone wanted in. Hands shot up everywhere. Teach me, and here's the thing about a crowd of excited beast girls raising their arms. Their fur and leaf outfits rode up with them. The scenery that unfolded before my eyes was, let's just say I whispered a quiet, "Bless this new world," to myself and left it at that. But reality hit fast. I'd just spent 20 minutes teaching 2 people. There were over 30 more waiting. At this rate, I'd be doing fire tutorials until next Tuesday. Then I looked at Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl, currently locked in their 97th death glare of the day, and a beautiful idea hit me. I told them whoever taught the most tribespeople to make fire would get an extra piece of meat at dinner. Their eyes lit up like I'd offered them a gold medal. They both shouted, yes, at the exact same time, glared at each other for saying the same thing, and then sprinted in opposite directions, dragging tribespeople behind them, competing to see who could produce firemakers faster. Within minutes, the whole camp was chaos. People shouting, smoke rising everywhere, little fires popping up left and right, and my 2 rival assistants racing each other like it was the tribal Olympics. I sat back, crossed my arms, and admired my own genius. Delegation. That's real leadership. After the fire-making class wrapped up, I suddenly realized I'd created a monster. 30-something campfires were blazing across the clearing, and the temperature had shot up by at least 10 degrees. I was drenched in sweat. Worse, we were surrounded by ancient dry forest in autumn. 1 gust of wind in the wrong direction, and we'd go from tribe that just discovered fire to tribe that burned down the entire continent on day 1. Not exactly the legacy I was going for. I yelled for everyone to put the fires out. Wood Green backed me up immediately, screaming about forest fires. Everyone's faces went pale. They'd all seen wildfires before and knew exactly how terrifying that was. Good. Fear is a great motivator. Then came the next problem. Someone shouted, "We don't have enough water." I told them to use dirt and sand. You'd think I'd just revealed another spell from the sacred scrolls. They had genuinely never considered that dirt could smother fire. Their entire fire-extinguishing knowledge began and ended with, "Pour water on it." These people had been living in the wilderness for generations, and nobody ever thought to throw soil on a flame. I was starting to understand why they needed a shaman so badly. But once they tried it and saw it worked, they went berserk. Dirt was flying everywhere. Some of these beast people were launching clumps of earth 20 to 30 meters into the air with their bare hands. On Earth, a strong person might manage 10 meters. These guys were basically human catapults. I filed that under things about this world that terrify me and moved on. Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl, of course, turned firefighting into yet another competition. They were standing with their backs to the fires, digging like dogs at the beach, kicking dirt backward through their legs at maximum velocity. It was efficient, I'll give them that. It was also completely unhinged. Other tribe members started evacuating the area just to avoid getting pelted by high-speed mud missiles from the two most competitive women in prehistoric history. When we got down to the last few fires, I suddenly had a brain moment. I stopped Tiger Girl from killing the final one. She looked at me with her ears drooping, genuinely upset. Apparently, Rhino Girl had extinguished more fires and was already doing a victory dance nearby. Tiger Girl was devastated about losing by one fire. I rubbed her head and ears and told her to calm down, then explained that we needed to keep one fire burning and move it into the cave. Nights were cold, and while we could always make new fire the hard way, having one already going was way more convenient. Her ears popped right back up once she understood I wasn't sabotaging her score, but actually thinking ahead for the tribe. She volunteered to carry the burning logs into the cave and sprinted off happily. Rhino Girl immediately tried to follow, desperate not to let Tiger Girl score bonus points with me. I stopped her and gave her a different mission. Take some people and gather as much dry firewood as possible for keeping the cave fires going through the night. Her droopy tail instantly perked back up and started wagging like a propeller. She vanished into the trees with a squad of wood gatherers before I even finished the sentence. Managing these two was becoming a full-time job, but I was getting better at it. The trick was making sure they both felt important. Equal attention, separate tasks, endless competition fuel. Honestly, it was like raising two very strong, very dangerous puppies. With the fires handled and everyone busy, I wandered across the clearing and ended up standing over the old shaman's body. He was still lying there with that peaceful smile frozen on his face. I just stood there quietly for a while. Didn't know what to think. Didn't know what to feel. This old man burned his last drop of life to pass his power to a random guy from another dimension who'd been unconscious on a Tiger Girl's shoulder. He trusted me with his entire tribe's future without ever hearing me speak a single word. That's either incredible faith or incredible desperation. Probably both. Wood Green came over and gently asked about funeral arrangements. Apparently tradition was cremation, wait for the hunting party to return, then burn the body together. I almost suggested burial out of habit, then caught myself. Buried bodies attract predators. Nomadic tribes can't guard graves. Cremation made perfect sense out here. The words barely left my mouth when a patrol guard at the tree line started screaming at the top of his lungs. The hunting party was back. The tribal chief and his warriors were finally coming home. The hunting party stumbled out of the forest looking like they'd been through a meat grinder. Every single one of them was covered in bandaged wounds. Apparently rule number one of hunting in this world. Patch yourself up immediately so the blood smell doesn't lure bigger monsters back to camp. Smart. Terrifying, but smart. Leading the pack was the tribal chief, Yin Hu, and holy mother of protein. This man was a unit. Over 2 meters tall with arms thicker than my entire torso. He looked like someone took a regular human, hit copy-paste on the muscle layer about 6 times, then slapped tiger features on top. Just standing still, he radiated, "I could crush your skull like a grape, and I wouldn't even notice," energy. Before I could even get close, Wood Green took off running toward them at a speed that made my jaw drop. This old man with green hair covered 500 or 600 meters in what had to be world record sprinting time. I tried to follow and got left in the dust like I was jogging through quicksand. These people and their superhuman everything. First thing Wood Green did was count the hunters. He went 1 through 10, then 1 through 6. 16 total, same as when they left. I could see the relief wash over him. Losing even one warrior apparently meant the tribe was that much closer to extinction. These weren't regular fighters either. They were totem warriors, powered by some kind of magical tattoo system that the shaman had to activate. Without a shaman, no new warriors could ever be made. Dead warriors meant permanent losses with 0 replacements. Fun math. The bad news came next. The hunting party had completely failed their mission. They'd gone north for 2 days looking for monster blood to save the old shaman, but every beast they found was either too weak to be useful or too strong to fight. One encounter with a rank 7 beast nearly killed 2 of their guys. They only survived because of emergency magic bone tokens the old shaman had given them beforehand. Then Wood Green dropped the bomb. The old shaman was dead. The hunting party's reaction was instant and devastating. Yin, whose chest tattoo started glowing, and he punched a tree so hard he left a fist-shaped crater 8 inches deep. The entire tree shook like it was having an earthquake. He was screaming, blaming himself for not preventing the enemy attack, for not bringing back monster blood in time. Then he announced he was going to march back to their old homeland and fight the Black Monkey tribe to the death. Every single warrior behind him immediately volunteered to join the suicide mission. These guys went from, "We're home," to, "Let's go die for revenge," in about 15 seconds flat. Wood Green planted himself in front of the raging 2-meter tiger man, this 5'7" old dude blocking a walking tank, and shouted the one piece of information that could freeze everyone in their tracks. "We have a new shaman." Dead silence. 16 massive warriors stood frozen like someone hit the pause button on reality. Then the questions exploded. How? Who? When? Didn't we test everyone already? Wood Green got swarmed by warriors twice his size, looking like a baby chick surrounded by eagles, trying to explain the whole story while getting peppered from every direction. Once he finished, the mood flipped so hard I almost got whiplash watching from a distance. These giant, scarred, battle-hardened warriors started jumping around, hugging each other, crying, laughing, dancing, grown men acting like kids on Christmas morning. "We're saved. The tribe won't die. Thank the Earth Mother." The calmest warrior asked Wood Green to take them to meet the new shaman. Wood Green turned around, spotted me wheezing and stumbling up behind them after my failed attempt to keep up with his sprinting, and just pointed. "That's him." 16 pairs of warrior eyes locked onto me simultaneously. Sweaty, out of breath, no shoes, half the size of any of them, looking like I'd just lost a race to a senior citizen. Great first impression. If I could have pulled out a phone right then, I'd have posted, "Help, 16 massive warriors are staring at me like I'm a rare Pokemon." What do I do? But phones don't exist here. The internet doesn't exist here. Indoor plumbing probably doesn't exist here. I was on my own. So I did what any terrified man surrounded by giants would do. I smiled the most awkward smile in human history and squeaked out a "Hey. Hi there." 16 statues. Not a single blink. Just burning eyeballs drilling holes through my skull. Then the big boss, Yin Hu, stepped forward and did something with his chest tattoo. It flickered, and suddenly I felt heat bubbling up inside my own body. Energy I didn't even know I had, shooting out an invisible thread that connected straight to his glowing bird tattoo. Then every other warrior surged forward, ripped open their fur shirts, and activated their tattoos too. My body started firing off connections like a switchboard going haywire. Invisible threads flying out in every direction, linking me to all 16 warriors at once. Their chest tattoos lit up one by one like Christmas lights on a tree. That sealed it. Only a real shaman could activate their totem power. I was the genuine article. Yin Hu dropped to his knees with actual tears streaming down his face. Yin Hu greets the shaman, then they all followed. This avalanche of enormous men hitting the dirt one after another, each announcing their name. Yin Hu, Song Shi, Mai, Mao, Jiao, Hongya. One by one, like roll call at the world's most intimidating elementary school. While they were down there, I studied their tattoos. Every single one had the same bird design. That must be the green sparrow totem the tribe was named after. But the quality varied wildly. Yin Hu's was deep crimson red, incredibly detailed, with visible claws and wing outlines. Most of the others looked like someone drew a bird while riding a roller coaster. You could tell it was a bird if you squinted and used your imagination. Clearly, there was a ranking system. Deeper color and sharper detail meant stronger warrior. All this knowledge should have been handed down to me by the previous shaman during some kind of training period. Instead, the old man died before we ever exchanged a single word. My entire education as supreme magical leader consisted of solving one puzzle and getting blasted by a light ball. Everything else I had to figure out by staring at people's chests. I remembered the leather bag Wood Green gave me earlier, the old shaman's final belongings. Maybe there were answers in those tadpole symbol scrolls, but that would have to wait. Right now, I had 16 starving warriors staring at me with cult member intensity, and I had absolutely no idea what to say to them. So I fell back on the oldest trick in the leadership handbook, food. You guys hungry? Let's go eat. Yenhu's stomach answered before his mouth could. It let out a growl so loud, I genuinely thought a pig had snuck into camp. I turned and looked at him. This 2-meter mountain of muscle and fury turned bright red and started stuttering like a schoolboy caught cheating on a test. Incredible. The man who punched 8-inch craters into trees was embarrassed about his tummy rumbling. I sent Wood Green running ahead to prepare food, and that old man vanished so fast he left a dust trail. By the time I walked back with the warriors at my painfully normal human speed, a mountain of meat was already piled up on the clearing, and the whole tribe was waiting to welcome them home. Big group cheer. Hugs. Tears. The works. I had Tiger Girl distribute the meat. 3 pieces per warrior, triple the normal ration, because apparently maintaining magical tattoo powers burns calories like crazy. The warriors grabbed their portions and immediately started chomping into raw meat like animals. Again, I slapped my own forehead. Did I teach these people nothing? Oh wait, these guys weren't here for the fire lesson. Right. I told Yenhu to stop and wait for cooked meat. He looked at me completely confused. But we don't have fire anymore. The other warriors nodded along, equally baffled. I didn't bother explaining. Just turned to Tiger Girl and said, "Light it up." She'd been waiting for this moment all day. She grabbed dry pine wood, a stick, some grass, set everything up like a pro, and drilled out a flame in under 3 minutes. Smooth, confident, zero hesitation. A completely different person from the trembling girl who could barely touch the wood a few hours ago. She spun around with her tiger ears bouncing, triumphantly, and announced to her father and his warrior squad with the smuggest grin I've ever seen on a face with fangs, "Dad, you can eat cooked meat now. That's my girl." When Tiger Girl lit that fire in front of her dad, the man's eyeballs nearly rolled out of his skull and bounced across the dirt. Yenhu, this 2-meter wall of muscle who punches craters into trees, stood there with his mouth hanging open like a broken drawbridge. The other warriors weren't any better. Some of them actually rubbed their eyes thinking they were hallucinating. I half expected one of them to faint. Yenhu finally managed to stammer out a question to his daughter. How did you jest? Is that magic? Tiger Girl puffed up her chest, flicked her ears proudly, and said, "The shaman taught me. But he says it's not magic. It's a life skill." Yenhu repeated, "Life skill," under his breath like he was trying to chew a word made of rocks. Then Rhino Girl couldn't stand it anymore. Watching Tiger Girl hog the spotlight was physically painful for her. She marched straight up to her own father, Songshur, the second biggest warrior, planted her hands on her hips, and announced, "I can do it too." Songshur looked at his tiny horn-headed daughter like she'd just told him she could fly. "Excuse me? You can?" Rhino Girl didn't waste time talking. She grabbed materials, squatted down, and drilled out a fire 20 seconds faster than Tiger Girl. Then she stood up, dusted off her hands, swished her little demon tail back and forth, and shot Tiger Girl the smuggest look in the history of smug looks. Tiger Girl's face puffed up so much with rage, I swear certain parts of her anatomy inflated an extra size from sheer fury alone. Songshur was too stunned to notice his daughter's rivalry drama. He just stared at the flames like they'd personally insulted his intelligence. The rest of the warriors were in similar states of brain failure. Mouths open, eyes wide, thoughts buffering at 0%. But then it got even better. Other kids in the tribe, sons and daughters of various warriors, saw Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl showing off and immediately caught the competitive bug. One after another, they started dragging Wood over, squatting down, and drilling fires to impress their dads. "Look, father, I can do it too. Me too. The shaman just taught us today." Fire after fire popped up across the clearing like popcorn kernels going off. 5 fires. 6 fires. 7 fires. The warriors' brains completely short-circuited. They went from shocked to more shocked to so shocked, they looped back around to numb. By the time the 6th kid lit a fire, they were just standing there with empty expressions, broken inside. They'd left camp for a few days to hunt monsters, and came home to find that apparently everyone in the tribe had become a wizard while they were gone. Yenhu finally turned to me and asked if I'd really taught all of them. I pointed at the far side of the clearing where dozens of dirt mounds sat in rows, the graves of all the practice fires we'd made and buried earlier that afternoon. "Everyone who stayed behind can do it now," I said casually, like I hadn't just revolutionized their entire civilization's relationship with fire in a single afternoon. Wood Green wandered over with this wistful expression, sighing about how he wished he could have shown off too, but they'd had to extinguish the fires before he got a chance. Yin, who side-eyed him hard. Even the old man was here to brag. Then Songshur asked the question that really mattered. Could the warriors learn it too? Every single hunter locked eyes on me. I could practically hear their brains calculating. Fire meant safety. Fire meant cooked food on hunting trips. Fire meant that when they camped at night in monster territory, they'd have a weapon that terrified almost every creature alive. Low-ranking beasts wouldn't dare approach a campfire. Their survival rate on missions would practically double overnight. Before, they'd relied on rare magic bone tokens the old shaman had made to produce fire, but there were only a handful. The old man had been too weak to make more, and now he was dead. If every warrior could just make fire with 2 sticks and some grass, everything changed. I told them yes, anyone could learn. The celebration that erupted was honestly ridiculous. These scarred, battle-hardened men started jumping and screaming like kids who just found out school was canceled forever. They didn't even want to eat first. They begged me to teach them immediately. So I handed the job to Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl, who attacked the task with the ferocity of 2 rival saleswomen working on commission. Within minutes, 16 more fires blazed across the clearing. 16 enormous warriors danced around their personal campfires, hollering and chest-bumping like they'd each individually conquered death itself. I had to send Wood Green out again to help kill most of the fires before we accidentally torched the entire forest. Dry autumn air plus 30 campfires plus ancient woodland equaled extinction-level bonfire. We'd gone through this exact panic once already today, and I wasn't about to do an encore. After the celebrations died down, and everyone finally ate their cooked meat, darkness crept in fast. Distant roars echoed from the forest, beasts waking up for the night shift. Yin Hu and the experienced warriors immediately switched into serious mode, herding everyone back into the cave and posting guards at the entrance. Night in this world was a completely different game. Fire could scare off the small monsters, sure, but the big ones? The high-ranked beasts? They'd charge straight through a campfire without blinking. The only thing that could stop those was a full forest inferno, and if we did that, we'd burn right along with them. Dying by fire or dying by teeth. Neither option came with a refund. So we huddled in our cave, fires burning at the entrance, listening to things with very large mouths prowling around in the dark outside, and I thought to myself, one day down as shaman. Exposed the entire tribe to the miracle of rubbing sticks together. Nearly burned down the forest twice. Got worshipped like a god for knowing 4th-grade science. Tomorrow I still had to figure out salt, read mysterious tadpole scrolls, and somehow keep 50-something beast people alive in a world where the wildlife actively wanted to eat us. No pressure. That night I stood at the cave entrance staring up at the sky, and that's when my last tiny hope of being on Earth officially died. 2 moons. 2. One big yellowish one about the size of the sun, and one smaller white one like Earth's moon, hanging in the sky together like mismatched earrings on a cosmic giant. I didn't even know which direction was north anymore. On Earth, you figure out directions from the sun setting in the west. But here, what if this planet spins sideways? What if north is actually diagonal? My brain started chasing its own tail trying to work out alien planetary physics, and I ended up just standing there like an idiot, mouth half open, staring at 2 moons, and questioning everything I ever learned in geography class. Meanwhile, behind me in the cave, Yanhu and Songshi were having a very interesting conversation that I only caught fragments of. They were discussing me, specifically trying to figure out where I came from. They couldn't match me to any tribe they knew. No beast ears, no horns, no tail, no claws, skinny enough that a monster could swallow me like a vitamin pill. Yanhu couldn't imagine what kind of tribe would produce someone like me and survive in the wild. Songshi had a theory, though. Maybe my entire tribe was made up of shamans. If everyone where I came from could use magic, then who needs muscles? I almost laughed. Yeah, buddy, on Earth we replaced muscles with pizza delivery and Netflix. Close enough. Then their conversation took a turn I didn't see coming. They started debating about picking a shaman's woman for me. Not in a creepy way. Apparently, this was a practical tribal tradition. The shaman gets the most resources, warriors get second most, women who gather food get less, and elderly and children get the scraps. For a woman to become a warrior, she first had to become the shaman's attendant, which woman, and share his resources to build up enough strength for the totem power. Plus, there was a bonus angle. If the shaman had kids, maybe the children would inherit the magic talent, so the tribe wouldn't face another succession crisis. Songshi immediately nominated his daughter, Rhino Girl. She's already got warrior potential. She's stronger than boys her age. Perfect candidate. Yanhu shut that down instantly. Your pint-sized horn child? She's a full head shorter than my daughter. Tiger Girl is obviously the right choice. Songshi fired back that Tiger Girl might be tall, but couldn't match Rhino Girl's strength. Back and forth they went. My daughter. No, my daughter. Until the debate devolved into actual physical combat. Two of the tribe's mightiest warriors rolling around on the cave floor, choking each other, because they couldn't agree on which of their teenage daughters should be assigned to babysit me. Everyone else in the cave just casually scooted out of the way like this was a normal Tuesday evening event. I heard the commotion and turned around. Hey, what are you two doing back there? They instantly separated, straightened up, and gave me the most unconvincing smiles in recorded history. Nothing. Just playing around. Haha. Neither of them mentioned the real reason for the fight. Apparently, even cavemen understand that if you try to make decisions for the boss without asking first, and he gets annoyed, you end up with nothing. These guys were primitive, but they weren't stupid. So there I was, 2 moons above me, 2 feuding father warriors behind me, 2 rival beast girls somewhere in the cave, probably glaring at each other in the dark, and 0 clue about any of it. Just another peaceful evening in my new life as an alien world's reluctant shaman king. I told Yanhu and Songshi to quit wrestling and go to bed. What I didn't notice was that the moment I turned my back, both of them pulled their daughters aside for some very intense whispering. Whatever they said turned Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl's faces cherry red. Suspicious, but I was too tired to investigate. The cave was enormous, half a football field, so 50-something people fit comfortably with room to spare. My personal quarters were at the very back, walled off with stacked stones for a little privacy, with the totem warriors sleeping nearby so they could reach me in 2 seconds flat if anything went wrong. There was even a natural ventilation hole in the wall that kept the air cool. Nice in autumn. Terrible idea in winter. Future me's problem. When I got to my spot, I found a tiny girl sitting by the fire I'd ordered earlier, half asleep, mechanically tossing wood into the flames. She had delicate deer antlers growing from her head, brown hair, and a face so pretty it would have launched a modeling career back on Earth. Couldn't have been older than 13 or 14. Actually, now that I thought about it, every woman in this tribe was ridiculously gorgeous. Flawless skin, beautiful features, great figures. The men were all chiseled like Greek statues with golden proportions. Nobody told me the beast people gene pool came with a built-in beauty filter. Dear Girl was losing her battle against sleep, swaying dangerously close to falling face first into the fire. I grabbed her just in time. She snapped awake, saw it was me, and turned so red I thought her antlers might catch fire from the heat coming off her cheeks. She could barely squeak out her name, Xia. I touched her antlers, which were surprisingly soft, not hard like I expected. She trembled like a leaf and whispered so quietly mosquitoes would have told her to speak up. I sent her to bed before she combusted from shyness. Finally alone, I pulled out the old shaman's leather bag and started studying everything by firelight. The big hide and several smaller hides were covered in those tadpole symbols. Individually, I couldn't read a single one, but somehow when I looked at them together, meaning just appeared in my brain. Thank you, magical puzzle download. There were also 5 bone tablets carved with patterns. 2 pairs had matching designs, and one was unique. I could feel the energy inside me reacting to them, but couldn't figure out how to use them yet. So I set those aside and focused on the writing. Half an hour of reading later, everything clicked into place. Turns out both shamans and totem warriors have ranking systems. Warriors go from beginner to intermediate to advanced. Shamans have the same 3 tiers. Yin, who was at the peak of beginner-level warrior, 1 breakthrough away from intermediate. The old shaman had been a low-level shaman but knew 3 spells, which apparently made him pretty impressive for his rank. The 5 bone tablets were shaman bone cards, basically magical grenades you activate with your energy. The old shaman had left behind 3 different spells stored in them. A fire blast spell, 2 cards, a healing spell, 2 cards, and an energy boost spell, 1 card. That basically worked like a magical Red Bull. He clearly thought the caffeine spell was lame because he only bothered making 1. The scrolls also explained how shamans are classified by their specialty: poison shamans, fortune-telling shamans, healing shamans, combat shamans. The old shaman was mainly a healer but could also shoot fire, making him a healer/fighter hybrid. Versatile old man. But the real treasure was the training method. To grow my magical reserves and get stronger, I needed to meditate. Sit cross-legged, clear my mind, enter a trance state. Exactly like every cultivation novel I'd ever read on Earth. My inner nerd was doing cartwheels. Supernatural powers were actually real here, and I had the instruction manual. I arranged myself on the ground, crossed my legs, closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and prepared to unlock my magical potential for the very first time. And that's exactly when I heard footsteps and whispering coming toward me through the darkness. Because apparently 5 minutes of uninterrupted peace was too much to ask for. I had just crossed my legs and was about to unlock my inner magical potential for the first time when I heard whispering and footsteps creeping toward me through the dark cave. Because, of course, the universe apparently has a strict policy against letting me have 5 consecutive minutes of peace. The firelight revealed my 2 favorite rivals, Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl, shuffling toward me while arguing in loud whispers. Tiger Girl was demanding to know why Rhino Girl was here. Rhino Girl was demanding to know why Tiger Girl thought she had exclusive rights to be here. Tiger Girl threatened to punch her. Rhino Girl lowered her horn and threatened to headbutt her until she cried. Tiger Girl mocked the horn, saying I didn't even like it. That was apparently Rhino Girl's nuclear button, because she started jumping up and down yelling about Tiger Girl's stupid cat ears. Tiger Girl exploded. Who are you calling a cat? I had to shut this down before they woke up the entire tribe. One sharp, be quiet, from me, and both of them deflated instantly. Tiger Girl's ears drooped, Rhino Girl's tail went limp, and they stood there like 2 puppies caught chewing shoes, sneaking little peeks at me to check if I was really angry. Then I asked the obvious question. Why were they here? Tiger Girl's face turned the color of a tomato. She started stammering something about her father telling her to come, serve, me and two. Something. Her voice trailed off into nothing at the end. Before I could ask her to repeat herself, Rhino Girl, bless her complete lack of social filter, just blurted it out at full volume. My father told me to come sleep with you. My brain stalled. I looked at Rhino Girl. Tiny. Flat as an airport runway. I looked at Tiger Girl, who'd apparently decided if Rhino Girl could say it, then so could she. My father said the same thing. I'm here to sleep with you too. I looked at Tiger Girl. Tall, curvy, all the right proportions in all the right places, definitely more structurally equipped for, wait. No. Stop. I am the shaman, not the perv man. And even if I were entertaining the thought, which I absolutely was not, doing anything in a cave with 50 people sleeping 30 meters away was not happening. At minimum, I'd need actual walls, a door, maybe some mood lighting that wasn't, campfire next to a pile of animal bones. I coughed, composed myself, and told them both to go home. Tell your fathers I don't need anyone sleeping with me tonight. Thanks but no thanks. Good night. Rhino Girl latched onto my arm like a koala on a tree branch. No, I have to become the shaman's woman. I'm sleeping here. Tiger Girl saw her rival physically attached to me, and her competitive instincts detonated. She grabbed my other arm. I'm not leaving either. My father will yell at me. I'm staying. 2 beast girls hanging off my arms. both refusing to leave, both claiming their fathers would punish them if they came back empty-handed. I realized these poor girls had been sent on a mission by their dads and genuinely couldn't return without completing it. Yin Hu and Song Shi, those sneaky, scheming caveman fathers, had weaponized their own daughters against me. I surrendered. Fine, you can stay. They cheered and high-fived each other. These two mortal enemies, who'd spent the entire day trying to destroy each other, celebrated together for exactly 1 second before remembering they hated each other. I pointed to the far side of the fire. You sleep there. I sleep here. Fire in between. That's sleeping together. Same room, same time, eyes closed at the same time. Together. Got it. Tiger Girl tilted her head, confused. But, shouldn't we be sleeping next to? I put on my serious face. Do you want me to send you both home? Two beast girls vanished to the other side of the fire so fast they left after images. They lay down side by side, perfectly aligned, staring at me with big blinking eyes like the world's most obedient kittens. I went back to studying the old shaman scrolls. After a while, Tiger Girl whispered to Rhino Girl something about how sleeping separately couldn't possibly produce babies, which was apparently what her father had briefed her on. But Rhino Girl was already fast asleep and snoring softly with her mouth open. Tiger Girl gave up on getting answers, turned back toward me, watched me reading by firelight for a while, whispered, "The shaman is actually pretty handsome," giggled, slapped her own mouth shut, checked that I hadn't heard, sighed with relief, and then drifted off. To sleep still blushing. Meanwhile I sat there, completely unaware that two teenage beast girls had just been deployed by their warrior fathers in a calculated breeding strategy aimed directly at me, reading ancient magic scrolls by firelight on an alien planet with 2 moons. My life had officially become the weirdest novel ever written, and I was only on day 1. Once both beast girls were snoring peacefully on the other side of the fire, I finally had my chance to try meditation for the first time. I took a deep breath, closed my eyes, cleared my mind, and boom, instantly transported into the white void space. No waiting, no struggle, no 30-minute warm-up period like the scrolls said was normal. One blink and I was in. Apparently my brain had a VIP fast pass to the meditation dimension. The space looked just like the one where I'd done the inheritance puzzle, except empty this time. No giant wall of symbols, just endless white nothing. I wandered around wondering what exactly I was supposed to do in here when I spotted a tiny black dot in the distance. Sprinted over, no gravity in the void, so running felt like floating on air, and found a cluster of 7 or 8 tadpole symbols waiting to be solved. Basic Edition. I rearranged them in about 10 seconds. They flashed gold, dissolved, and poured into my body as raw magical energy. That's when the light bulb went off. Meditation training was literally just doing math problems. Every cluster of symbols I solved converted into shaman power inside me. I'm an engineering graduate. Math problems are my breakfast cereal. This was like finding out the key to ultimate magical power was passing a middle school exam. I went on a rampage, sprinting around the white void hunting for symbol clusters like a kid collecting coins in a video game. 20-something puzzles later, my magical reserves had roughly doubled. Some of those later puzzles even involved quadratic equations, the kind of stuff that would make any caveman's brain melt and leak out their beast ears. But for someone who survived university calculus, child's play. I was basically cheating at magic. Eventually I hit a wall, not a puzzle wall, a stomach wall. My body started feeling stuffed, like I'd eaten too much at an all-you-can-eat buffet, except the food was raw magical energy. Turns out you can't cram infinite power in one session. Gotta digest. Fair enough. Since I couldn't absorb more energy but was still floating in meditation space, I decided to practice actual spells. Started with the healing spell from the old shaman's notes. 8 tadpole symbols, arranged in sequence, easy enough. Green light formed, smelled like fresh forest air, and I tossed it at myself since there was nothing else to target. Felt a brief wave of warmth. Not very exciting since I wasn't injured, but at least it worked. I started the spell again to practice speed casting, and that's when my engineering brain kicked into overdrive. While assembling the symbols, I noticed something nobody in this world had probably ever noticed. Symbol 4 and symbol 5 could be merged into a single combined symbol. And symbol 6? I recognized it from one of the math puzzles. It could be broken down into 4 smaller subsymbols, which meant the underlying structure was flexible. The implications hit me like a freight train. Spell formulas could be modified. I ran the experiment immediately. Merged symbols 4 and 5 into one new hybrid symbol. Kept everything else the same. The 8-symbol spell became a 7-symbol spell. For a moment, nothing happened, and my heart sank. Then the symbols started vibrating one by one, running that same self-check sequence I'd seen during the inheritance ceremony. The green light that erupted was twice as bright as the original version. I blasted myself with it, and my entire body was flooded with warmth so intense and soothing it felt like sunbathing on a tropical beach after the world's best massage. Every ache, every bit of tiredness, every worry, gone. Compared to the wimpy, lukewarm handshake the original spell gave me, this upgraded version was at least 3 times more powerful. I'd been a shaman for less than a day, and I'd already reverse-engineered and improved an ancient magical spell using basic algebra. Every shaman before me had been copying formulas passed down for generations, never questioning whether the recipe could be optimized. But I had something none of them ever had: 12 years of modern mathematics education and the audacity of an engineer who sees a system and immediately thinks, I can make this better. This world had no idea what was coming. So my big discovery about modifying spells sent my brain into hyperdrive. If merging symbols made the healing spell 3 times stronger, imagine what I could do with the fire spell. The original shot out a tiny flame like a sad birthday candle. But if I compressed its 15 symbols down to fewer, stronger ones? Giant fireballs. Explosions. Real wizard stuff. And the energy drink spell? Maybe I could turn it into some kind of berserker boost that made warriors fight at 5 times their normal power. The possibilities were making me dizzy. But I also figured out the flip side of the equation. More symbols meant weaker spells that cost less energy. Fewer symbols meant devastating power, but drained you fast. Which meant, theoretically, if you could compress a spell down to just 1 or 2 symbols, you'd basically be holding a nuclear weapon made of magic math. My inner engineer was frothing at the mouth, but my magic tank was running on fumes after all the experiments. I had to call it quits and save the fire spell and energy drink modifications for next session. I popped out of meditation, found the campfire dead, and both beast girls twisted into a pretzel pile on their side of the cave, sleeping like angels. I passed out within seconds. Then morning happened. Something hard was poking my chest. Something soft was pressed against my face. Something wet was licking my cheek. I cracked one eye open and discovered my 2, sleep over there, girls had migrated across the dead campfire zone during the night and burrowed into me like heat-seeking missiles. Rhino Girl's horn was drilling into my ribcage. Tiger Girl's fluffy ears were smushed against my hand. And Tiger Girl was licking my face in her sleep. Tongue out, little dream licks, probably hallucinating about a piece of steak. Now, I am a healthy young man. It was early morning. 2 beautiful girls were wrapped around me in a very warm, very close configuration. My body had opinions about this situation. Strong opinions. But 50 tribe members were already awake and moving around the cave, so acting on those opinions was absolutely, categorically, 1000% not an option. I shoved them both awake. Tiger Girl wiped drool off her mouth, looking mortified. Rhino Girl noticed she'd poked a hole through my fur shirt with her horn and did her guilty tongue-out face. I asked them why they'd crossed enemy lines during the night. Tiger Girl poked her index fingers together like a shy anime character and mumbled that the fire went out and they got cold. Rhino Girl cheerfully added that I was super warm and she wanted to sleep hugging me every night from now on. I gave her my best death stare and she shrank down to half her already tiny size. The cold thing made me wonder, though. I hadn't felt cold at all. Maybe the magical energy inside me was keeping me warm like an internal heater? Filed that under cool perks of being a shaman. Then Wood Green came to get me, and the mood shifted completely. It was time for the old shaman's funeral. Everyone gathered outside in silence. The whole tribe, all 50-something people, lined up quietly with serious faces. Even Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl dropped their usual chaos and walked behind me without a sound. At the end of the path, the warriors had built a small wooden pyre. The old shaman lay on top, still wearing that peaceful smile from when he'd died. Songshur handed me a lit stick. I tossed it into the pyre. Then Yin Hu threw one in. Then Songshur. Then every warrior. Then Wood Green. Then every single tribe member, one by one. The flames grew with each stick, crackling and popping in the morning air, slowly wrapping around the man who'd burned his last breath to give a stranger his power and save his people. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. After the old shaman's ashes scattered in the morning breeze, life moved on fast. The tribe split into their daily roles. Old folks watching kids, women fixing clothes and tools, and warriors gearing up for a hunt. Yenhu told me food and water were running low. 2 days of supplies left, maybe 5 if the hunting party brought back a good haul. 5 days. That's it. That's the entire safety net between us and starvation. One bad rainstorm, one animal migration, one unlucky encounter with a high-level beast, and we'd be chewing on tree bark and regret. I told Yenhu to take all the warriors hunting instead of leaving half behind to babysit me. He flat out refused. The shaman's safety is more important. I argued. I reasoned. I pulled rank. I literally ordered him as his supreme magical leader. He looked me dead in the eyes and said no. This 2-meter wall of tiger muscle who bows to me like I'm a god, apparently, obey the shaman's every word, has a footnote that says, except when the shaman is being dumb about his own safety. I gave up. You can't outstubborn a man whose skull is thicker than his biceps, and his biceps could bench press a truck. My throat was dry from all the arguing, so I asked my 2 permanent shadows to fetch me water. Both of them lit up like I'd offered them a medal and sprinted off in opposite directions, racing to see who could bring water back faster. They returned almost simultaneously, each proudly holding a stone bowl, eyes sparkling with, pick mine, energy. I took both bowls, looked inside, and immediately wanted to cry. The water was cloudy brown soup with visible chunks of grit and sand floating around like tiny submarines. This wasn't drinking water. This was a science experiment. I asked if this was really what everyone in the tribe drank. They nodded like I'd asked the dumbest question ever. Of course. What else would they drink? I dumped both bowls on the ground. The girls stared at the puddles like I'd just poured out liquid gold. Their faces went from confused to horrified when I explained that the water was full of invisible bugs, bacteria, parasites, things too small to see, but absolutely capable of making people very, very sick. Stomach pain, diarrhea, vomiting, even death if it built up long enough. Tiger Girl looked like she was about to burst into tears, stammering that she never would have brought me poison water if she'd known. Rhino Girl was shaking, swearing she'd rather die than let me drink bug water. Yenhu went pale too. If something happened to me from bad water, the tribe's future would be toast all over again. He shot both girls a death glare that made them shrink down to half their normal size. I calmed everyone down. I hadn't actually drunk any of it. Crisis averted. Then I asked the obvious follow-up. Had anyone ever randomly gotten stomach aches? Sudden sickness? Unexplained fevers? People collapsing and foaming at the mouth? All classic symptoms of drinking unfiltered wild water full of bacteria and parasites for years on end. The color drained from all 3 of their faces simultaneously. Yeah, they'd seen every single one of those symptoms before. They'd just never connected it to the water. And right on cue, as if the universe had been listening to my lecture and decided to provide a live demonstration, someone came sprinting over shouting that little deer girl Xia had collapsed in the cave, clutching her stomach. I ran to the cave and found her curled up on the ground, rolling around in pain, face white as paper, with a knocked-over stone bowl beside her. Classic case. She'd chugged too much raw water, and her body was fighting back. I checked her over quickly. No signs of anything worse than a bad stomachache. She'd be fine with rest, and no more unboiled water. But this was exactly the wake-up call I needed. Teaching these people fire was step 1. Step 2 was going to be convincing 50 beast people that the water they'd been drinking their entire lives was slowly poisoning them, and that the guy who showed up yesterday unconscious on a tiger girl's shoulder somehow knew more about survival than generations of wilderness-dwelling warriors. Being a shaman was turning out to be less mystical magical leader, and more one-man public health department desperately trying to keep everyone alive long enough to learn basic hygiene. I wanted to heal little deer girl Xia with my shiny new upgraded healing spell, but healing magic only works on external wounds, not. I drank swamp water and my guts are staging a revolution. So I just patted her soft little antlers and wiped the sweat off her face like a concerned dad. which was basically the extent of my medical capabilities at that moment. The tribe was buzzing with panic behind me. Water has bugs in it. Is that real? The shaman said it, so it must be true. So do we just stop drinking water forever? These people had been chugging unfiltered creek water their entire lives and never once made the connection between mystery stomach explosions and the liquid sandpaper they were pouring down their throats daily. I told everyone to calm down, explained the whole bacteria situation again for the group, and watched 50 beast people go through the 5 stages of grief about their drinking water in real time. Then came the million-dollar question from Yin Hu. So, how do we drink water then? Every single pair of eyes in the tribe locked onto me like I was about to announce the meaning of life. I grinned. Time to build something. I sent Yin Hu to chop a section of bamboo. And when I say bamboo, I don't mean the cute little sticks you see in earth gardens. This world's bamboo was 2 meters wide. 2 meters. Each stalk was basically a hollow tree trunk. Yin Hu grabbed a stone axe, walked off casually, and came back carrying a 7-meter log on his shoulder like it was a pool noodle. When he dropped it on the ground, the earth actually dented several centimeters. I had to recalibrate my understanding of bamboo and heavy at the same time. I sent Tiger Girl to collect leftover charcoal from yesterday's barbecue fires. Rhino Girl immediately materialized at my elbow, shaking my arm, demanding her own assignment before Tiger Girl could get a head start. I sent her for clean sand and small stones. Both girls vanished with their respective squads like competing relay teams at the world's most primitive Olympics. Once everyone brought back their materials, I directed Yin Hu to cut 3 sections from the bamboo, top, middle, and bottom, each a different diameter so they'd stack inside each other like nesting cups. He carved drainage holes in the bottom of each section, and then I had Tiger Girl layer charcoal inside the bottom piece and Rhino Girl pack sand and pebbles into the middle and top pieces. 3 layers. Top layer, small stones to catch the big junk and hold everything in place. Middle layer, fine sand to trap the smaller particles. Bottom layer, charcoal to absorb toxins, chemicals, colors, and taste. 3 stages of filtration stacked together in one beautiful bamboo tower. Would it meet Earth's EPA standards? Absolutely not. Would it remove 90% of the horrifying things floating in their current water supply? Absolutely yes. Both beast girls squatted next to my invention like curious kittens inspecting a new toy, poking it, touching every surface, tiger ears twitching, demon tail swishing. I had Yin Hu hang the filter in the air with vine rope, placed an empty bamboo bucket underneath, and poured the tribe's disgusting brown creek water into the top. Everyone held their breath. The muddy water trickled down through the stones, through the sand, through the charcoal, and dripped out the bottom into the bucket crystal clear. Like actual clean water. The kind of water you'd see in a commercial with mountains in the background and a woman smiling at a glass. Tiger Girl's ears froze mid-twitch. Rhino Girl's tail stopped mid-swing. The entire tribe stood there with their mouths hanging open, staring at transparent water like they'd never seen such a thing in their lives. Which, honestly, they probably hadn't. I'd just invented the water filter for an entire civilization using bamboo, burnt wood, and sand. And from the looks on their faces, you'd think I'd turned lead into gold. Day 2 as shaman. Already revolutionized fire, public health education, and the municipal water system. What's next? Indoor plumbing. The filtered water dripped into the bucket crystal clear, and Yin Hu, the man with zero impulse control, immediately scooped a bowl and chugged it before I could even open my mouth. His eyes went wide as dinner plates. This guy had been drinking mud smoothies his entire life, and just tasted clean water for the first time. He looked like a man who'd been eating cardboard for 30 years and someone just handed him chocolate cake. He wiped his mouth, whispered, "So sweet," and lunged for a second bowl. I had to physically block him with my arm. Even filtered water was still raw water, and I wasn't about to let the tribe's strongest warrior give himself parasites because he discovered flavor. I told him to build a fire, set up a stone pot, and boil the filtered water. Simple, right? Except nobody here had ever boiled water before. Tiger Girl asked me what boiling even meant. I told her to watch for white steam rising from the pot. The entire tribe crouched around this stone pot like it was a crystal ball, waiting for the magical smoke prophecy to come true. 5 minutes passed. Nothing. Stone conducts heat about as well as a brick conducts electricity. I mentally added, invent pottery, to my ever-growing to-do list, right between find salt and don't die. Another 5 agonizing minutes crawled by before tiny bubbles finally appeared, and then steam. Rhino Girl spotted it first and screamed like she'd discovered a new continent. Everyone lost their minds. The water is smoking. The shaman was right. He predicts the future. Tiger Girl was so excited she scooped a bowl of freshly boiled, volcanic temperature water and poured it directly into her mouth. The result was exactly what you'd expect. Her face turned the color of a fire truck. She spat everything out, stuck her tongue out like a panting dog, and started fanning her mouth with both hands while making noises that were somewhere between a scream and a tea kettle. The rest of the tribe recoiled in terror, backing away from the pot like it had just attacked their strongest warrior's daughter. Rhino Girl, trembling, asked me if the water was poisonous. I wanted to lie down on the ground and stare at the sky for a very long time. These people had never encountered hot liquid in their lives. They understood fire. They understood cooking meat over fire. But the idea that water could also become hot, that the same heat that cooked their dinner could also make water dangerous to immediately chug, had simply never occurred to a single person in this entire tribe. I was raising 50 giant toddlers with superhuman strength and animal ears. I explained, with the patience of a kindergarten teacher on his last nerve, that boiled water was hot, just like freshly cooked meat was hot, and you just had to wait or blow on it. I demonstrated by scooping a small bowl, blowing on it for a bit, then told Rhino Girl to open her mouth. She looked confused but obeyed without hesitation. I tilted the bowl and poured warm water past her lips. Her eyes went enormous. No burning, just warmth, gentle, cozy, spreading from her mouth down to her stomach like drinking liquid sunshine. Her face flushed pink. Her tail started wagging at maximum speed, and she nodded so hard her horn almost took out my chin. Delicious. She looked exactly like a puppy who'd just been hand-fed a treat by its favorite person. I handed her the bowl and told her to blow on it herself from now on. Her tail immediately stopped wagging. You're not going to feed me anymore? The disappointment in her voice could have filled an ocean. I told her I needed to drink too. She deflated visibly, like someone had let the air out of a balloon shaped like happiness. Then she glanced over at Tiger Girl, who was still standing there with her tongue hanging out, fanning her scorched mouth, looking absolutely ridiculous. And Rhino Girl's mood did a complete 180. That demon tail started swishing back and forth like a victory flag. Meanwhile, I sat there sipping my first proper drink in this world. Warm, clean, filtered water, wondering how I'd ended up as the single father of an entire civilization that couldn't figure out hot water was hot. I drank my first proper cup of warm, filtered water, and, not gonna lie, it was better than any bottled water I ever had on Earth. Something about primitive mountain stream water run through homemade charcoal filtration just hits different. The whole tribe followed my lead, blowing on their bowls, taking cautious sips, then immediately abandoning all caution and chugging scorching water because it tasted too good to wait. Everyone was moaning with satisfaction like they'd just discovered the meaning of life at the bottom of a stone cup. Wood Green started jumping around screaming, "Magic! This is definitely magic!" And I didn't even bother correcting him anymore. Let the old man have his moment. Then I remembered poor dear girl Xia hadn't had a single drop of water in hours because I'd banned raw water and nobody thought to bring her the boiled stuff. I grabbed a bowl and headed into the cave, my 2 permanent shadows trailing behind me like competitive ducklings. Found Xia looking rough, cracked lips, dull antlers, the works. I propped her up in my arms and carefully fed her warm water. She drank with these tiny delicate sips, eyes half closed, looking like the world's most fragile baby deer. It reminded me painfully of my little sister back on Earth, same age, around 13 or 14, though personality-wise they were polar opposites. My sister was a full-blown rebellious nightmare who lived to make my life difficult. I wondered if she was worried about me disappearing. Probably not. She was probably just glad nobody was telling her to do homework anymore. When Xia finally woke up enough to realize she was cradled in my arms being hand-fed water, she turned crimson and launched herself backward so hard she slammed into the cave wall, crossing her arms over her chest like I was some kind of criminal. The poor girl was terrified, not of me specifically, but of closeness in general. I left the bowl on the ground for her and walked away without pushing it. Some things you don't fix by being pushy. On the walk back outside, I asked Tiger Girl what had happened to Xia. The mood dropped instantly. Turns out the Black Monkey tribe, the same enemies who'd wounded the old shaman, had attacked their homeland, and Xia's parents died fighting them off. Her dying father literally threw her to Yin, who before going down. She'd been like this ever since. A 13-year-old orphan made mute by trauma, surrounded by beast people who loved her but had zero concept of therapy. Rhino Girl's reaction was to clench her fists and yell that she wanted to sleep with me, so she could become a totem warrior and murder every single Black Monkey tribe member. Tiger Girl immediately matched her energy. No, you sleep with me, so I can become the warrior who takes back our homeland. They were using revenge fantasies as pickup lines. Incredible. I steered the conversation towards something actually useful and asked how strong the Black Monkey tribe was. Both girls deflated like punctured balloons. They have many people, Tiger Girl said, waving her hands around vaguely. I asked how many was. She kept gesturing bigger and bigger circles in the air, stammering, completely unable to put a number on it. That's when it smacked me in the face. These people couldn't count. Not really. Wood Green's counting method was going 1 to 10, then starting over. They had no math, no number system beyond what their fingers could handle. My mortal enemy had an army of unknown size, and my own people couldn't even tell me whether many meant 200 or 2,000. Add invent math education to the list right after pottery, salt procurement, and somehow not getting eaten by monsters in my sleep. So I needed to figure out the enemy's numbers, but my people couldn't count past 10 without starting over. I squatted down, drew a circle in the dirt, and told Tiger Girl, "This circle equals our tribe's population. Now draw how many circles the Black Monkey tribe has." Brilliant move if I say so myself. Making math visual for people who've never heard of math. Tiger Girl grabbed the stick, thought hard, and drew 7 circles. Then Rhino Girl snatched the stick away and added half a circle. 7.5 circles. 50 people times 7.5 equals 375. Nearly 400 enemies. In a world where bronze hasn't been invented yet, 400 warriors might as well be 400 tanks. No wonder both girls looked like someone had stepped on their tails whenever the Black Monkey tribe came up. I stood there staring at those circles thinking, great, so my tribe of 50 misfits is outnumbered almost 8 to 1 by the guys who already kicked us out of our homeland and killed our shaman. Wonderful. Fantastic. What a beautiful situation I've inherited. Tiger Girl nervously asked if I thought the enemy was too strong. Rhino Girl puffed out her completely flat chest and declared that if the Black Monkey tribe attacked, she'd personally carry me on her back and run away. Not fight. Not defend. Just grab me and sprint. That was her battle plan. Evacuation of 1. I laughed and told them both to relax. I'm a 21st century college graduate. If I couldn't outsmart 400 cavemen who hadn't invented the wheel yet, I deserved to be eaten by whatever monsters were lurking in these forests. Both girls immediately lit up, nodding furiously, fully convinced that because I said everything would be fine, everything would definitely be fine. Their blind faith in me was both touching and absolutely terrifying. I ruffled both their heads. Tiger Girl melted into my hand purring. Rhino Girl complained I was messing up her hair, and for one nice moment, everything felt okay. Then they both asked to sleep with me again so they could become warriors faster. I pretended to have a coughing fit and changed the subject. Back at camp, the water situation hit me like a brick. The filtered water was already gone. Every drop. And when I asked why nobody made more, Yinhu explained that water was precious because their only source was a river far from camp, surrounded by monsters. Only totem warriors could go near it without becoming lunch. Every cup of water the tribe drank had to be escorted back by armed guards through beast-infested forest. My brain immediately started running through solutions. Dig a well? I walked around camp and realized the ground was too dirty. We had no proper stones for lining the walls, and one rainstorm would collapse the whole thing into a mud pit. Wells were a future project, not a today project. The water crisis needed fixing now. I told Yinhu to take me to the river so I could see it myself. You'd think I'd announced I was going to jump into a volcano. Yinhu's face went white. Wood Green started shaking his head so fast it blurred. Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl each grabbed one of my arms like human anchors. The entire tribe begged me not to go. You're our only shaman. The last one died. You can't risk yourself. Please. I understood their fear. I really did. But I also understood something they didn't. A tribe that keeps its shaman locked in a cave forever isn't a tribe that survives. It's a tribe that slowly dies of thirst while its leader sits safe and useless behind stone walls. I told them straight. Water is more important than food, more important than safety, more important than anything. Without solving the water problem, we'd never grow, never get stronger, and never take back our homeland from the Black Monkey tribe. Everyone went quiet. Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl slowly released my arms. Yin, who stared at the ground. Wood Green looked like he was chewing on something bitter. They all knew I was right. They just hated it. The silence hung in the air while 50 beast people wrestled with the question of whether letting their irreplaceable shaman walk into monster territory was worth the chance of never being thirsty again. I hit them with the one argument nobody could counter. What happens when the warriors are out hunting and a monster attacks the camp? Can you guarantee anyone survives? Yenhu's face went white. Everyone's faces went white. I could practically see the horrifying images playing behind their eyes. Their whole tribe reduced to a beast buffet, while the warriors were miles away chasing dinner. That shut down the debate real fast. Yenhu agreed to take me to the river, on the condition that I stay glued to the warriors and don't wander off. Fair deal. My magical combat abilities currently consisted of one upgraded healing spell and a lot of confidence. Not exactly a toolkit for surviving Monster Country alone. Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl immediately demanded to come along. Yenhu shut them down so hard his tiger ears stood straight up, and both girls shrank to half their size. They turned their big, pleading eyes toward me, hoping I'd override Dad. Not a chance. I told them they had a critical mission, defend the camp while we were gone. Both girls snapped to attention, puffed their chests out proudly, and saluted like tiny soldiers, which would have been very inspiring if their fur outfits hadn't shifted during the chest puffing, giving me a front-row view of scenery. I mentally added, invent proper clothing, to my ever-expanding civilization to-do list, because at this rate my nose was going to start bleeding on a daily basis. We headed out. Yenhu on point, 2 warriors flanking me in a protective sandwich. The forest was absolutely insane. Every tree was at least 20 meters tall. My outdoorsman brain kept short-circuiting because the plant species made zero botanical sense. There were trees that only grow in humid subtropical valleys right next to trees that belong in frozen Siberian mountains, all mixed together with bamboo thick enough to park a car inside. On Earth, these species couldn't exist within 1,000 miles of each other. Then I remembered 2 moons, beast people, magic tattoos, and told my inner botanist to sit down and shut up. The warriors were wound tighter than guitar strings the entire march, flinching at every rustling leaf and snapping twig. Normally they walked these forests like they owned the place. Today they were escorting their irreplaceable shaman through monster-infested wilderness, and the stress was practically vibrating off their bodies. Half an hour of hiking through increasingly dense forest, so thick the canopy swallowed all sunlight. And Yin, who suddenly dropped into a crouch and hissed, "Stop." The 2 warriors shoved me to the ground before I could blink and formed a wall in front of me with their stone spears raised. Crashing noises ahead. Something big moving fast through the trees, heading straight for us. I remembered a trick from the shaman scrolls, spreading my magical senses outward like sonar, and swept the area. One humanoid figure, running at high speed. "It's a person," I whispered to Yenhu. He glanced back at me with a, "How do you know that?" expression, but didn't question it. His chest tattoo started glowing red, spear aimed forward, ready to skewer whatever burst through those trees. 3 seconds of crunching branches later, a guy in furs burst out of the trees running full speed. Yenhu recognized him immediately. It was one of our hunting party warriors. My magical sensing trick had been right, and Yenhu gave me a look that clearly said, "We're going to talk about how you did that later." But there was no time for explanations. Mai's face was pure panic. One of our warriors, Mao, had been ambushed by a rank 8 monster called a spikhorn pig, got his stomach ripped open. Intestines visible. Blood everywhere. The hunting party had killed the pig, but Mao was dying fast. I told everyone to shut up and move. Yenhu scooped me onto his shoulder like I was a rolled-up newspaper and took off sprinting through the forest. Trees in his way. Chopped down mid-stride. Boulders? Jumped clean over. The scenery was blurring past at motorcycle speed. I was clinging to a 2-meter tiger man's shoulder, watching the world fast forward and thinking two things simultaneously. Totem warriors are absolutely terrifying, and I really need to make more of these guys. We burst into the hunting party's clearing. Not pretty. Mao was lying in the center of a defensive circle, stomach sliced open with a gash the length of my palm, bleeding out fast. The dead spikehorn pig was flopped nearby. At least they got revenge. Everyone's eyes were red, jaws clenched, trying not to cry while watching their brother die. Song Shi was holding Mao's hand, and Mao was using his last breaths to talk about dear girl Xia. Turns out Mao was her guardian. Her father had entrusted Xia to him before dying in the Black Monkey attack. Now Mao was begging Song Shi to take care of her, maybe convince me to make her a shaman's attendant so she'd be protected. The guy was literally spending his final words worrying about an orphan girl instead of himself. These primitive beast people had more honor in their dying moments than most civilized humans I'd ever met. My chest felt tight. Then Song Shi spotted me behind my and immediately started yelling, not at the dying man, not about the emergency, but at my recklessly bringing the shaman into danger. Mao was bleeding out on the ground, and this man was holding a workplace safety meeting. I swear these people's protective instincts toward me had completely overridden their survival logic. Their friends' guts were literally on display, and their first concern was whether I'd stubbed my toe on the walkover. Meanwhile, Mao's eyes were closing. The warriors knew the old shaman's healing bone cards could only fix palm-sized wounds. Mao's injury was way beyond that. They'd need 4 or 5 cards to save him, and we only had 2. By their math, he was already dead. By my math, I had a 3 times upgraded healing spell sitting in my magical reserves, and nobody in this world knew it existed yet. I told everyone to shut up and get out of my way. When they parted, I got my first real look at Mao's wound and almost lost my breakfast. His stomach was sliced open like a zipper, a gash the length of my palm, blood pouring out, and I could actually see his insides trying to become his outsides. Intestines just casually peeking out like, hey, what's going on out here? My stomach flipped, but I kept my face stone cold because nothing kills morale faster than your magical leader looking like he's about to puke on the patient. I had no idea if my upgraded healing spell would work on something this catastrophic. The original version could barely handle a paper cut, but the guy was literally dying in front of me. So the options were, try the experimental magic, or watch him bleed out while doing nothing. Not much of a choice. Mao saw me and managed a weak smile before his eyes went dark again. He'd already done the math. The old shaman couldn't have fixed this, so what chance did the brand new day 1 rookie shaman have? 0, in his mind. He was saying goodbye inside his head. Yenhu took one look at the wound and started screaming at Song Shi about how the hunting party let this happen. Song Shi just stood there taking it in silence. Everyone was drowning in grief. They'd all reached the same conclusion. Not enough healing bone cards. Wound too big. Warrior as good as dead. That's when I started moving my fingers through the air. The cave went dead silent. Black tadpole symbols materialized out of thin air in front of me, one after another, floating and glowing as I traced them into existence. Every warrior's jaw unhinged simultaneously. One of them rubbed his eyes and stammered that a new shaman shouldn't be able to manifest spell symbols for at least 30 days. I'd been shaman for 1 day. Another recognized the pattern. That's the healing spell. I've seen the old shaman use it. 7 symbols formed, merged together, and erupted into green light in my palms. The whole thing took about 3 seconds. I screamed at the guy pressing the blood-soaked fur against the wound to move it, slammed my hands open, and pushed the green energy directly onto that horrifying gash. What happened next was genuinely beautiful. The green light spread over the wound like warm spring rain, releasing this incredible fresh forest scent that made everyone nearby feel calm and peaceful. And beneath the glow, flesh was actually knitting itself back together. Skin crawling toward skin. Blood vessels reconnecting. The impossible becoming possible right before 16 pairs of disbelieving eyes. 5 seconds later the light faded. 1/3 of the wound had sealed shut. Brand new pink skin where a death sentence had been moments ago. The warrior's hopes crashed immediately. Only a third? It's not enough. He's still going to. I was already casting the second spell. Their words died in their throats. Every single warrior looked like someone had slapped them across the face with a fish. The old shaman needed rest between each spell. Minutes, sometimes longer. I just fired off number 2 like I was reloading a water gun. The green light washed over Mao again, and when it faded, only a pinky finger length of wound remained. Nobody even had time to react before I launched spell number 3. At this point, the warriors had transcended shock and entered some kind of spiritual catatonia. Several were pinching their own faces. One had tears streaming down his cheeks without making a sound. They'd just watched their rookie shaman cast 3 consecutive healing spells without breaking a sweat, something their previous shaman couldn't have done in his prime after decades of practice. The third wave of green light settled over the last sliver of wound. 5 seconds of warm glow. Then silence. Mao's bleeding had completely stopped. The gash was gone, replaced by a thin line of fresh, tender skin. His breathing steadied. His face relaxed. He fell into a peaceful sleep, alive and healing. Songshur crept forward like he was approaching a sleeping dragon and whispered, Is he okay? I nodded. He's fine. They cleaned the blood off his stomach and stared at the thin pink scar where a fatal wound had been 60 seconds ago. Then the cheering started. Then the chanting. Woo, woo, W. 16 warriors screaming my title at the sky with the kind of religious fervor that starts civilizations. Their eyes were burning with something beyond gratitude. It was absolute, unshakable, slightly terrifying devotion. Day 2 as shaman. Performed emergency battlefield surgery using experimental magic I'd invented the night before by doing algebra in a dream dimension. Not bad for a guy who couldn't even get promoted to assistant manager back home. After saving Mao's life, the warriors asked me when I'd learned magic. I shrugged and said, last night, read the scrolls, figured it out. The silence that followed was so thick you could have spread it on toast. These people had spent decades watching their old shaman struggle to master basic spells, and Wood Green, the most promising candidate before me, took 30 days just to learn his first symbol and still couldn't qualify as a shaman. I did it in one evening because the ancient mystical art was basically math homework. But I couldn't exactly explain that. So I just stood there looking casual while 16 warriors stared at me like I'd announced I could fly. Yin Hu and Song Shur started trembling, which I initially thought was fear until I realized they were shaking with excitement. The old shaman's dying prophecy, that I'd make the tribe great, was suddenly looking very, very real to them. I just thought they were being weird. I sent 3 warriors back to camp with the unconscious Mao and the dead spikehorn pig, then told everyone else we were continuing to the river. Songshur protested. Too dangerous. The shaman can't be risked. I hit him with the same logic I'd used on everyone else. If all the warriors get hurt and nobody can fetch water, do we just die of thirst? He shut up and agreed, though he made it very clear he'd physically drag me out at the first sign of trouble. The formation they put me in was absolutely ridiculous. 10 totem warriors arranged around me in a perfect protective sphere, eyes scanning every direction, weapons ready. I've seen footage of presidential motorcades with less security. I was one skinny magic nerd surrounded by a wall of muscle and murder intent. Nothing was getting within 50 meters of me without being turned into confetti. Half an hour of tense hiking later, I heard running water. We crouched low, crept through some bushes, and there it was, a river, maybe 15 meters wide. And drinking from its banks was the most insane collection of nightmare creatures I'd ever seen. A spikehorn pig identical to the one that nearly killed Mao. A wolf covered head to tail in razor-sharp spines like a porcupine had a baby with a nightmare. Something elephant-sized with ram horns and a 1-meter frog tongue slurping water in huge curls. A regular house cat-sized thing with claws longer than its own fingers. And further down the bank, more shapes I couldn't even identify from this distance. I asked how on earth the warriors collected water with this monster zoo blocking the shore. Yin Hu casually explained that as long as you don't make loud noises, the beasts ignore you. Apparently, there's an unspoken truce at the watering hole. Predators, prey, everyone just drinks and minds their own business. Same phenomenon exists on Earth actually. Animals avoid fighting near water sources because contaminating the water hurts everyone. Nature's version of no fighting in the cafeteria. Yin Hu grabbed a bamboo bucket and strolled toward the river like he was taking a Sunday walk past a row of sleeping nuclear warheads. I held my breath, ready to send every warrior charging in if anything so much as sneezed in his direction. But he was right. The monsters glanced up, decided he wasn't interesting, and went back to drinking. So the water source wasn't the problem. Getting to the water source without needing an armed military escort every single time. That was the problem I needed to solve. Yenhu walked right up to the river like it was no big deal, and the nearest monster, some terrifying thing that could probably bite a man in half, just glanced at him, huffed, shuffled a few steps to the side, and went back to drinking. Like a grumpy neighbor making room at a shared water fountain. I couldn't believe my eyes. For a second I forgot I was in monster-infested prehistoric fantasy land and thought I was watching polite strangers at a park. Then a fish jumped out of the water and my entire brain rerouted. Not just any fish, a half-meter-long beast with 2 whiskers, launching itself out of the river like a silver missile. I grabbed Songshi's arm and asked if this river had fish. He stared at me blankly. Fish? What's a fish? I pointed at the next one that leaped out. That thing. Right there. He nodded slowly. Oh, those are double-whisker river beasts. Lowest rank monster. Level 9. Basically harmless. My heart started pounding. Can you eat them? Songshi thought about it. We've never tried, but they're not poisonous, so? Probably, that was all I needed to hear. My brain exploded with possibilities. Fishing nets, fishing lines, traps, weirs, smoking, drying, salting, an entire food production industry built around one river full of edible fish that nobody in this world had ever thought to eat because they were too busy chasing land monsters with pointy sticks. Songshi tried to talk me down, explaining that the fish were too fast to catch, and there were dangerous creatures in the water too. Something called a sharp-toothed river beast that sounded exactly like a crocodile. I waved him off with a grin that probably looked slightly unhinged. If the fish are edible, the food problem is solved. And while we're at it, the water problem too. You'd think I just told these warriors they'd won the lottery, inherited a kingdom, and discovered immortality all at the same time. Every single one of them started shaking, not from fear, but from pure overwhelming joy they physically couldn't contain. Songshi's voice was trembling so hard, he could barely form words. Is this real? Both problems? Food and water? I nodded. Absolutely real. When Yenhu came back with his water bucket and saw his entire squad vibrating like tuning forks, he had no idea what happened. Someone explained. His eyes went wide as saucers, his face turned bright red, and he opened his mouth to let out what was clearly going to be the most triumphant victory scream in the history of primitive mankind. Our Green Sparrow tribe is going to. Songshi's hand slammed over his mouth so fast, it made a clapping sound. Shut up. You want every monster at this river to eat us? Yenhu nodded frantically, and even after Songshi let go, he kept his own hand clamped over his mouth because he didn't trust himself not to scream again. This massive, terrifying, tree-punching warrior standing by a monster-filled river with both hands pressed against his face, eyes watering with excitement, bouncing on his toes like a kid who needs the bathroom. Beautiful. I told everyone to grab water and move out before we caused an incident. They snatched up bamboo buckets and rushed the riverbank. 6 or 7 enormous, red-eyed, trembling with joy warriors charging toward the water like a pack of maniacs. The monster that had politely made room for Yen, who earlier looked up, saw the incoming stampede of clearly unhinged humans and made a very wise decision. It quietly walked another 15 meters away without making eye contact. Even the local wildlife could tell. These 2-legged creatures were way too hyped up right now, and smart beasts know when to just back off and let the crazy people do their thing. On the way back from the river, I made everyone take a detour. Yenhu complained that I was in danger out here and we should go straight home. The others agreed. Then I said the magic words. This is how we solve the food and water problem. And suddenly nobody had any more objections. Funny how that works. I spotted exactly what I was looking for, a dried-up stream bed on a hill above our camp. I asked Songshi when it stopped flowing. About 30 days ago, he said. Perfect. That meant we were in early autumn. The dry season had just started, and this creek used to connect to the river. I scraped the surface dirt, dry on top, moist underneath. Easy digging. This was my highway. I gathered everyone around and dropped the plan. Dig out this creek bed and connect it to the river to bring water directly to our camp. You'd think I'd just told them the secret to eternal life. Every warrior's eyes lit up like torches. Yin, who slapped his hands together so hard it echoed off the trees, and immediately tried to start digging with his bare fists. But Song Shi, my favorite thinker in the group, stopped him cold. If we bring water to our camp, the monsters will follow the water to our camp. Boom. Every excited face went pale in an instant. He was absolutely right, and I loved him for catching it, because it let me reveal the real plan. I pointed at their bamboo water buckets and grinned. We're not digging an open channel. We're building pipes, blank stares, total confusion. So I spelled it out with hand gestures. Hollow out dozens of bamboo tubes, connect them end to end, bury one end in the creek where the river water would flow, run the pipeline underground all the way to camp. Water flows through sealed bamboo. No open stream on the surface means no water smell, no monster trail, no danger. An invisible plumbing system delivering fresh river water straight to our doorstep. The moment it clicked, you could practically hear 9 brains exploding simultaneously. Yin, who scratched his head in disbelief. Why didn't I ever think of that? Song Shi was wide-eyed, muttering about how genius it was that surface level there'd be zero evidence of water, so no beast would ever track it to us. These guys had spent their entire lives hauling buckets through monster territory, losing warriors to injuries, rationing every precious drop. And the solution was bamboo tubes and gravity. Technology so simple a plumber's apprentice would laugh, but so revolutionary it was about to change their entire civilization. I made a mental note that basic education needed to happen yesterday. These people were smart. Song Shi proved that by spotting the predator problem immediately, but their thinking was trapped inside a box built by generations of, this is how we've always done it. Without foundational knowledge, even brilliant minds can't innovate. My job wasn't just to hand them inventions. I needed to teach them how to think. Then one of the warriors asked about the food problem. I smiled and said 2 words, river fish. Complete bewilderment. They knew the double-whisker river beasts were edible and harmless, but the idea of deliberately catching water creatures for food had simply never crossed anyone's mind. Too fast to grab, too dangerous with crocodile things lurking below. In their world, food meant chasing land animals with spears and hoping nobody died. In MY world, food meant fishing nets, traps, weirs, and 1,000 years of human ingenuity they'd never dreamed of. I had solutions for everything. They just didn't know it yet. And honestly, watching their faces cycle through confusion, realization, and pure uncontainable joy every time I opened my mouth was becoming my favorite hobby in this new life. I dropped my master plan on the warriors. We'd catch the river fish using a tool called a net. Every single one of them looked at me like I'd started speaking in tongues. I realized I didn't have time to explain what a net was to people who'd never seen string woven together. So I told them we'd deal with that later and put them to work on the water pipeline first. I split them into 2 teams. One group dug out the dried creek bed, widening and deepening it into a proper trench big enough to fit bamboo tubes. The other group chopped bamboo, hollowed out the centers, sharpened one end of each tube, and jammed it into the open end of the next one. Boom, primitive PVC piping. I also had them dig 2 extra channels near the river, plus a deep pool about 20 square meters wide between them. Nobody understood why, but nobody questioned the shaman anymore. When Yin Hu asked what the big hole was for, I just smiled and said, "You'll find out when it fills with water." I was becoming dangerously addicted to being mysterious. The work speed was absolutely inhuman. What would have taken excavators 2 or 3 hours on Earth, these meat-powered digging machines finished in barely over an hour. They clawed through soil with their bare fingers like it was warm butter, not even flinching. I stood there watching and genuinely calculated that if I could somehow bring these guys back to Earth, I'd become the most legendary construction contractor in history. Forget bulldozers, just feed these dudes some grilled monster meat and point at the dirt. I stopped them before they got too carried away. No point digging the whole pipeline if we didn't have enough bamboo tubes ready to fill it. Better to go home, prepare everything properly, and finish tomorrow. Yin, who pouted like a kid told recess was over, but I reminded him that while everyone was playing civil engineer, nobody was hunting dinner. His face went through about 4 emotions in 2 seconds before landing on embarrassment. I sent him and 6 warriors off to hunt, while Song Shi and 3 warriors escorted me home. On the walk back, I drilled into Songshur the single most critical engineering principle of the entire project. The pipeline had to slope consistently downhill from river to camp. Every bamboo section lower than the one before it. If even one section was higher, gravity wouldn't push the water through and the whole thing was useless. Songshur nodded with the seriousness of a man receiving nuclear launch codes. When we got close to camp, I spotted Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl perched in separate trees like a pair of anxious parrots, necks stretched out, scanning the forest for any sign of me. The second they saw us, their worried faces cracked into pure sunshine, and they screamed my name so loud it triggered a chain reaction across the entire camp. People dropped whatever they were doing and came sprinting toward me from every direction, cheering and crying out with relief. Something cracked inside my chest. These people, all 50-something of them, had been sitting here terrified that their shaman might not come back. Every minute I was gone, they'd been imagining the worst. And now they were running toward me with so much genuine love and relief that my throat tightened and my eyes got hot. I opened my arms. Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl slammed into me at full speed from opposite sides. Tiger Girl's soft, fuzzy ears smushed against my chest like warm pillows, and Rhino Girl's horn stabbed me directly in the sternum like a bone dagger. Both of them looked up at me with big, innocent eyes. What's wrong? What could I say? I patted Tiger Girl's ears, rubbed Rhino Girl's horn, smiled through the pain, and lied through my teeth. Nothing. I'm fine. Getting back to camp felt like a celebrity homecoming tour. Tiger Girl nuzzled into my hand like a purring kitten, while Rhino Girl filled me in on how the whole tribe nearly had a collective heart attack when the injured warriors came back without me. Then Songshur, clearly campaigning for best future father-in-law, jumped in to brag about how I'd solved the water problem, and both beast girls turned into question cannons firing at me nonstop without pausing long enough for me to actually answer anything. Honestly adorable, but also exhausting. Then would Green bulldoze through both girls to get in my face, demanding to know if the water pipeline thing was real. The whole tribe thought I'd need some kind of apocalypse-level magic to pull water out of thin air. When Songshur explained that it was literally just hollow bamboo, tubes connected together and buried in a trench, their expressions morphed from disbelief to, why didn't anyone ever think of this before, to full-blown worship in about 30 seconds. Wood Green opened his mouth to deliver what was obviously going to be a 5-minute speech praising my genius, and I physically held up my palm like a stop sign. Save the compliments. Go cut bamboo. He looked like a balloon someone forgot to pop. All that praise just trapped inside his red face with nowhere to go. Once the bamboo crew left, I finally had a moment to breathe. And that's when I noticed something horrifying. I asked Tiger Girl when she'd last bathed. She thought about it. 20 days ago. 20 days. I accidentally blurted out that I'd been smelling something on them since we met and thought it was their natural beast person scent. Both girls turned so red their faces could have been used as emergency stop signs, stomping their feet in mortified fury. But this wasn't just about smell, it was about survival. No antibiotics existed here. No antiviral medicine. My healing spell could close a wound, but couldn't fight bacteria. One nasty infection spreading through 53 people crammed in a cave with zero hygiene, and my entire tribe would be wiped out by something invisible instead of by monsters. That scared me more than any spike-horned pig ever could. So I assembled the 30-ish people still in camp and pitched them on something revolutionary, cleaning up. I asked if they wanted to bathe once the water arrived. Unanimous screaming yes, especially from the two beast girls who were now hyper-aware of their own funk. Then I asked if they really wanted to wash themselves clean just to sit down in a camp that smelled like rotting bones and random poop. The mental image hit them instantly. People started volunteering complaints, stinking bones everywhere, kids using the cave floor as a toilet, mystery smells in corners nobody wanted to investigate. I organized the whole operation like a military campaign. Sent one group to make brooms out of tree branches and use hollow rocks as dustpans, because I absolutely was not going to ask anyone to pick up ancient feces with their bare hands. While they worked on sanitation tools, I pulled Songshur and the remaining warriors aside for the construction project I'd been dying to start: bathrooms and bathing areas. Actual dedicated structures, made from stone walls and thatched roofs, where people could wash and do their business in private like civilized beings instead of randomly fertilizing the campground. Day 2 as shaman, and I'd gone from guy who invented fire to guy who invented plumbing, public health policy, and the concept of not pooping where you sleep. My civilization speedrun was accelerating, and I hadn't even gotten to fishing nets yet. Songshur asked me what a toilet was. I had to explain to a grown warrior that it's a place specifically for pooping and peeing. The fact that this concept was brand new to him explained so much about why the camp smelled like a war crime against nostrils. Kids, adults, everyone had just been dropping bombs wherever they felt like it. The entire settlement was basically a minefield of biological hazards. I picked a corner of the clearing far from where I planned to eventually build houses and put everyone to work. 20-something people plus a few warriors, hauling giant stone slabs around like they were cardboard boxes. Within an embarrassingly short amount of time, we had 4 complete structures, 2 toilets and 2 bathing rooms, all with stone walls, thatched roofs, and a rustic charm that I describe as caveman chic meets desperate necessity. I even dug proper waste pits underneath the toilets. Martha Stewart would have been horrified. I was proud. Then I made my first cultural policy mistake. I carved the Chinese characters for male and female on the walls of the respective facilities. Very civilized. Very progressive. One problem, nobody could read. Not a single person. I'd forgotten again that I was governing a population with a 0% literacy rate. Everyone stood there squinting at my beautiful calligraphy with the confused intensity of dogs watching a magic trick. Songshur, bless his honest heart, sheepishly admitted they had no idea what I'd written. They assumed it was sacred shaman script and were terrified that misreading it would get their fingers chopped off, because Songshur had helpfully announced that anyone caught in the wrong bathroom would lose a finger. Thanks for the enthusiasm, big guy, but maybe let's not amputate over a bathroom mix-up. I improvised. Hung 1 stick above the men's doors and 2 sticks above the women's doors. Simple, visual, impossible to mess up. The whole tribe celebrated like I'd solved world hunger instead of just inventing the concept of, which door do I poop behind? Then I made an announcement that was far less popular. Everyone had to learn to read. The 2 characters on the wall were just the beginning. Literacy was mandatory for the tribe's future. Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl immediately latched onto my arms, begging me to cancel homework before it even started. I shook them off and told them this wasn't negotiable. If we wanted to grow strong enough to crush the Black Monkey tribe, we needed brains, not just muscles. Culture is the ladder of civilization. It took humanity 10,000 years to crawl from primitive society to feudal society on Earth, and I wasn't about to let my tribe repeat that timeline. Future expansion would bring new people into the fold, and you can't hold a growing nation together with fists alone. You need shared knowledge, shared language, shared identity. Nobody was buying my inspirational speech. Tiger Girl's ears wilted like dying flowers. Rhino Girl's tail went completely still for the first time since I'd met her. The entire tribe looked at me like I'd just announced mandatory dentist visits. Apparently, the one thing scarier than monsters, starvation, and enemy tribes combined was the prospect of learning to read. Wood Green came back dragging bamboo logs and immediately walked into a wall of sulking beast people who looked like they'd just been told Christmas was canceled. When he found out I wanted to teach everyone to read, he panicked and tried to talk me out of it, assuming I meant shaman script, which he'd personally spent a month failing to learn before giving up entirely. I told him no. This was a completely different writing system that anyone could pick up. His brain did a full 180 so fast I'm surprised his neck didn't snap. The man went from, don't waste their time, to, everyone must learn immediately in about 2 seconds, eyes blazing with religious intensity, drool literally forming at the corner of his mouth while he fantasized about our tribe becoming some kind of wilderness superpower. Meanwhile, Tiger Girl was whining that she'd rather fight monsters than study. Rhino Girl was nodding along. The one time these two agreed on anything, and it was about hating school. The rest of the tribe silently radiated the same energy. Please, shaman, we will dig holes, fight beasts, carry boulders, literally anything except homework. Wood Green looked ready to tie everyone to trees and beat literacy into them with a stick. I stopped him before he started a riot and decided to try a different approach. I asked Tiger Girl for a small stick, found a patch of sandy ground, smoothed it flat, and drew a picture. Guess what this means? Drew a shape with a round head, a hooked tail, and two little wing shapes in the middle. Everyone stared. Random guesses flew around. I hinted, think about the shape itself. Songsher squinted and ventured. Not a bird. Rhino Girl backed him up. Others started nodding. I confirmed it. Yes, it meant bird. The tribe erupted like they'd just collectively solved a murder mystery. You'd think they'd cracked an ancient code instead of identifying the world's simplest pictograph. I drew 3 wavy lines. Rhino Girl practically launched herself off the ground screaming, "Water! It's water!" before I even lifted the stick. I told her she was brilliant, and her tail went into full helicopter mode. Tiger Girl immediately got jealous and demanded the next one. I drew a triangle shape. "Mountain!" she yelled, vibrating with competitive energy. I praised her, and she beamed so hard her fangs sparkled. Back and forth they went. Sun, moon, fire. Each symbol simpler than the last. Each correct answer met with explosions of pride and celebration. 5 minutes ago, these people would have chosen death by monster over learning a single character. Now they were fighting each other for the chance to guess the next word, bouncing on their toes, ears twitching, tails wagging, treating basic literacy like the most thrilling game they'd ever played. The secret wasn't forcing education down their throats. It was turning it into a competition between 2 extremely competitive beast girls who would literally do anything to earn my praise, dragging the entire tribe along for the ride. Sometimes the best teaching method is just knowing which buttons to push. Half an hour into my literacy revolution, the sandy ground looked like a madman's art gallery. Dozens of pictographs covering every inch of cleared space. And the best part? The same people who'd been begging me to cancel school 30 minutes ago were now shoving each other out of the way to guess the next symbol first. Nothing motivates beast people like turning education into a competitive sport. I drew my trickiest one yet. 3 pointy triangles on top, 2 big X shapes on the bottom. Tiger Girl's hand shot up so fast, she almost slapped the person next to her. "Mountain!" she screamed with absolute confidence. I shook my head. "Not mountain." Her ears deflated. Rhino Girl swooped in with a smug grin. "Obviously it's a spear. The 3 points are the spearhead, also wrong." Rhino Girl's face crumbled. Tiger Girl immediately pounced on the opportunity to mock her. "How is that a spear?" "Spears have 1 point, genius," Rhino Girl fired back. "At least I didn't guess something we already did, you forgetful cat." And just like that, they were at each other's throats again while the actual puzzle sat there unsolved. Nobody else could figure it out either. Wood Green shook his head and admitted defeat. I was starting to feel disappointed. I'd been hoping all these rounds of guessing would stretch their thinking beyond the obvious, but they were still stuck in one word, one shape mode. Then a tiny voice floated up from the back of the crowd. I think I know." I looked over and my heart squeezed. It was dear girl Xia. Pale, skinny, barely recovered from her stomach crisis, standing half-hidden behind bigger tribe members with her hand raised exactly to the top of her head and not a centimeter higher. The second everyone turned to look at her, her face went crimson and she tried to physically retreat into the crowd like a startled fawn pressing itself into a bush. But the people behind her were packed too tight. She was trapped in the spotlight with nowhere to hide, and I could see panic building behind her eyes. I softened my voice as much as I could. "It's okay, Xia. Go ahead." Something about hearing me speak gently seemed to calm her down just enough. She bit her lip, gathered every crumb of courage her tiny body contained, and whispered her answer. "I think. It's not 1 word. It's 2 words." The crowd immediately started buzzing. 2 words? Every other one was just 1. That can't be right. She must be wrong. Xia heard them and started shrinking again, mumbling that she should just forget it. She was probably wrong. I could see weeks of trauma and grief and loneliness folding her back into that protective shell she lived in. I walked over, took her thin little hand in mine, and told her to keep going. Her hand was cold and bony. This girl hadn't been eating enough for a long time. She froze when I touched her, brain visibly short-circuiting, face going from pink to full tomato. But she didn't pull away. If anything, her fingers curled slightly tighter around mine, like she was holding on to warmth she'd been missing for a very long time. Behind us, Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl were staring at our joined hands with expressions that could have set the forest on fire. "It's campfire," Xia said quietly. I broke into the biggest grin. She was absolutely right. The 3 triangles were flames. The two X shapes were crossed firewood. Put them together, campfire. 2 words in one picture. She was the only person in the entire tribe who'd figured out that symbols could combine to create compound meanings. This shy, traumatized, underfed 13-year-old deer girl had just demonstrated more creative thinking than 50 adults combined. I grabbed her wrist and thrust her arm into the air like a boxing referee declaring a champion. The tribe exploded. Xia looked like she wanted to evaporate from embarrassment, but there was something else underneath, a tiny flicker of pride she was trying very hard not to show. After I explained how the pieces fit together, flames on top, wood on bottom, everyone slapped their foreheads and demanded more compound puzzles. 30 minutes ago, they'd rather fight monsters than learn. Now they were addicted, begging for harder challenges, competing to be the next Xia. Meanwhile, Xia stood off to the side, still red-faced, quietly flexing the hand I'd held, staring at her own palm like it contained a secret only she could feel. My literacy class was a smashing success. The trick was using Oracle bone script, ancient pictographs where each character literally looks like the thing it represents. Instead of cramming complicated modern Chinese down their throats, I started with cave paintings that had graduated to alphabet status. Bird looks like a bird. Water looks like waves. Mountain looks like peaks. Even people who swore they'd rather wrestle monsters than study were now physically fighting each other for the chance to guess the next symbol. I'd accidentally invented the world's first game show, and the prize was my verbal approval. I wrapped up the lesson before everyone's brains overheated. Too many new symbols in one sitting, and they'd start mixing everything up. Told Wood Green to carve all the characters onto stone tablets so people could study anytime. That old man was practically vibrating with excitement about becoming the tribe's first librarian. Then I made a decision that caused more political drama than I expected. I noticed little deer girl Xia struggling to carry firewood on arms thinner than the sticks she was hauling. She'd just proven she was the smartest person in the tribe by being the only one to crack the compound symbol puzzle. So I told Wood Green to let her help him manage the written records, basically making her the co-director of tribal education. Wood Green's face fell instantly. He thought I was grooming Xia to be my shaman woman. He pulled me aside and launched into the most uncomfortable pitch of all time. Xia was too skinny, too small. Her babies would be weak, might not inherit the shaman talent, could die young. Then he pointed at Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl, who were currently racing each other across camp, carrying logs thicker than their waists without breaking a sweat. Those, too, he said with the enthusiasm of a horse breeder at auction, strong bodies, good hips, healthy children, much better breeding stock. I nearly choked on my own tongue. This girl was 14. On Earth, I'd be on a government watch list just for hearing this conversation. But I couldn't explain modern age of consent laws to a man whose entire civilization measured a woman's worth by whether she could survive childbirth while fighting a bear. So I just told him to drop it and do what I said. He obeyed, but I could see the worry eating him alive. What I was actually doing was resource redistribution. The tribe's pecking order was rigid. Shaman eats first, warriors eat second, workers eat third, and the weak get scraps. Xia was at the absolute bottom. Orphaned, traumatized, underfed, no combat value. I couldn't restructure the entire economic system overnight without destabilizing the tribe, but I could quietly reassign her under my personal authority, which meant she'd eat from my share. Nobody would question resources flowing from the shaman to his own assistant. Sneaky? Yes. Necessary? Absolutely. Then Yin, whose hunting party burst back into camp carrying 3 spikehorn pigs, enough food for 2 extra days. The tribe went nuts celebrating, and my brain immediately went to logistics. 2 days of guaranteed food meant 2 days of full workforce available to finish the bamboo pipeline. Water was coming. Meanwhile, Wood Green wandered off looking like someone had told him the world was ending, clutching 2 pieces of meat that Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl had cheerfully handed him. Both girls were completely clueless about his inner turmoil. He looked at them, sighed the heaviest sigh I've ever heard from a man holding free barbecue, and shuffled away muttering, "You poor fools." The 2 beast girls stared at each other in total confusion. What was wrong with the old man? There was meat. Life was good. What could possibly be the problem? Woke up feeling like someone parked a car on my chest. Opened my eyes. Nope, just 2 beast girls using me as a mattress again. Tiger Girl was blowing tiny snot bubbles in her sleep. Rhino Girl was mumbling dream nonsense with her lips smacking together. I specifically told them not to come over during the night. Did they listen? Of course not. When has anything I've said to these two ever stuck for more than 30 seconds? I shook them awake, planning to give them a stern lecture, but they hit me with those big, round, innocent eyes, and I crumbled like a sandcastle in a tsunami. I am a weak man. Then screaming erupted outside, and my heart nearly stopped. I sprinted out expecting a monster attack and found Yin Hu and his warriors panicking about the toilets. These enormous battle-hardened men were pointing at the stone structures like they'd sprouted from the earth overnight by dark magic. Which, from their perspective, they kind of had. The hunting party came back after dark yesterday and never saw them being built. Tiger Girl had to calmly explain to her own father that these were bathrooms, not enemy fortifications. Once the warriors finally noticed the camp was clean and didn't reek like a sewer anymore, they started marveling at the transformation like tourists visiting a renovated hotel. Then one warrior pointed out that he could still smell something terrible. Turned out he'd smeared monster dung all over himself yesterday as hunting camouflage and forgot to mention it. Everyone instantly created a 2-meter exclusion zone around him. The poor guy stood there alone, face burning red, while 50 people pretended he didn't exist. I channeled everyone's energy toward the pipeline project. Split the workforce strategically, warriors handling the dangerous sections near the river where monsters lurked, Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl leading the civilian crew on the safer stretches closer to camp with a warrior escort just in case. Even the elderly and children got jobs, because this was survival, not summer camp. Everyone works, everyone eats. I kept dear girl Xia behind in camp, which made her feel guilty about not doing heavy labor. I could read it all over her face. Original humans wore their emotions like neon signs. I told her I had something more important for her, finding vines. Every type of vine she could get her hands on. She looked at me with the world's most adorable, confused expression, tiny question marks practically floating above her antlers. See, my real plan was the fishing net. This single invention was going to transform everything. Nets could catch fish in the river, snare birds from the sky, and create traps that would let warriors capture monsters without risking their lives in direct combat. Picture it, lure a beast onto a hidden net. Warriors yank it tight from all sides. Monster goes nowhere. Fewer injuries, more food, safer hunting. Revolutionary. The problem was materials. I'd inspected every vine the tribe currently used, and they were all garbage for net making. Too stiff, too brittle, snapped the second you try to knot them. I needed vines that were flexible, strong, and fresh enough to be woven and tied without cracking. Finding the right species meant collecting samples of everything available and testing them one by one. Xia didn't understand how random jungle vines could solve a food crisis, and I couldn't explain the entire concept of fishing technology to a girl who'd never seen a net. So I just rubbed her little deer antlers, which had this amazing texture, smooth but slightly bumpy, weirdly satisfying to touch, and told her to trust me. She turned pink, nodded obediently, and trotted off to organize the elderly and children vine collection squad. Meanwhile, my brain was running at full speed. The pipeline would bring water. The net would bring food. Literacy would bring knowledge. Each piece feeding into the next, building momentum toward the day I'd march this ragtag band of 53 beast people back to their homeland and shove the Black Monkey Tribe's 400 warriors into the historical dumpster where they belonged. Day 3 is shaman. Plumbing under construction, education system launched, public sanitation operational, fishing industry in R&D phase. If I kept this pace up, I'd hit the Bronze Age by next Thursday. I sent little deer girl off with the elderly and children to collect every type of vine they could find. Nobody understood why, but nobody questioned the shaman. Good. My cult of personality was functioning perfectly. Since I had nothing to do while waiting for vines, I figured I'd check on the pipeline crew. Walking along the trench line, everyone stopped to greet me, woo, 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 like a presidential parade route, except muddier, and everyone had animal ears. Then I rounded a corner, and my brain short-circuited. A wall of dirt was erupting 30 meters into the sky like a brown geyser. The noise was thunderous. I squinted through the flying mud and discovered the source. Tiger Girl, Rhino Girl, and several warriors were bent over with their backs to the trench, blasting soil between their legs at terrifying velocity. They looked exactly, and I mean exactly, like dogs digging at a beach. Just full-speed reverse excavation, dirt fontaining behind them in massive arcs, tails and ears flopping everywhere. I coughed loudly. Tiger Girl popped up instantly, face smeared with mud, beaming like sunshine. "Oh, you're here." Everyone stopped their canine impersonation and waved at me with filthy hands. I asked why nobody was using shovels. They stared at me like I'd suggested breathing underwater. Tiger Girl explained that wooden tools snapped immediately under their strength and stone tools were too hard to shape. Their bare hands were literally the best equipment available. I asked if it hurt. Rhino Girl shoved her tiny hands in my face. Perfectly smooth, white, not a single scratch despite hours of clawing through raw earth. These beast people apparently had skin tougher than work gloves. I gave up trying to understand the biology of this world. The good news was the pipeline was almost done. Mao, fully recovered from his near-death experience yesterday, thanks to yours truly, reported that Yenhu's Riverside section was flying along. Tiger Girl's team just needed a few more hours. Both sides would connect by afternoon, and water would reach camp before sunset. I actually clapped my hands with genuine excitement. Tonight I could bathe. 3 days without washing in a world with no deodorant, no soap, and fur clothing that trapped every smell like a museum exhibit of human misery. My skin was crawling. My hair felt like it belonged to a different species. I was fairly certain small ecosystems were developing in places I didn't want to think about. Then, 2 steps into my walk back to camp, my brain screamed an emergency alert. Storage. I'd built an entire water delivery system and completely forgotten to build something to catch the water at the other end. Without a reservoir, the pipeline would just dump river water onto the ground all night while everyone slept. Hundreds of liters wasted into mud. I designed the world's most impressive primitive plumbing system and almost forgot the bucket at the end. I grabbed Mao and Red Fong and dragged them back toward camp to dig a reservoir pit. Tiger Girl appeared behind me. "I'll help too." Then, in perfect synchronization, Rhino Girl materialized with the exact same words. They glared at each other. I sighed and brought them both. Found a good elevated spot at the pipeline's terminus and told the warriors to start digging. They dropped and started excavating so aggressively that by the time I turned around to give Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl their own task, collecting flat stones for lining the walls, the 2 warriors had already blasted out a crater 3 meters wide. I had to physically yell at them to stop making it bigger. The reservoir only needed to be about 2 meters across and deep enough to hold a night's worth of water, not a swimming pool for the entire tribe. These guys had one speed, maximum. The concept of small hole did not exist in their vocabulary. The reservoir pit was done, 2 meters square, 3 meters deep, perfectly shaped. Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl came back carrying piles of rocks bigger than their own heads. Everyone stared at the hole trying to figure out what it was for. Then Rhino Girl, my precious little question machine, asked with completely genuine innocence, "Is this another poop pit?" My face went so dark you could have used it as a blackboard. And no, it was not a poop pit. It was a water tank for storing water. So we wouldn't waste everything the pipeline delivered overnight while everyone was sleeping. Rhino Girl then hit me with follow-up question number 9,000. "But doesn't water just disappear into dirt?" And honestly, good question. She was thinking. I'd rather have 50 curious idiots than 50 obedient zombies. So I explained that we'd pack the bottom tight and line it with stones to seal the gaps. I had the 2 warriors jump into the pit with boulders and stomp the floor flat like they were performing some kind of rage dance. Their feet hammered the soil so hard it looked like a special attack from a video game. Pure war stomp energy. Then they punched the stones into the ground with their bare fists. The reservoir floor went from soft dirt to basically concrete in about 90 seconds. Sent the beast girls to find flat rectangular stones for the walls. They vanished in opposite directions, instantly locked in their eternal competition to see who could haul back better materials faster. I stood there admiring my own management technique. Individually, each girl operated at maybe 80% efficiency. Together, 120%, fueled by pure spite and the desperate need to outperform each other. I was basically running the world's first rivalry-powered construction company. Walls went up fast. Reservoir complete. I dusted off my hands and announced, Everything's ready. We just need the east wind. For beast people blinked at me in total confusion. Mao and Red Fong exchanged bewildered glances. What was an east wind and why did we need it? Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl, however, had spent enough time around me to know that when I said things they didn't understand, it just meant I was being profound and mysterious. They gazed at me with sparkling eyes full of adoration like I'd just recited ancient poetry. I had not. I'd quoted a Chinese idiom from a novel about war. But sure, let them think I was deep. A runner came sprinting in at a speed that would have left my legs in a different time zone, reporting that Yanhu's riverside section was finished and ready to connect. Mao pointed out that our end wasn't quite done yet. I told him to let Yanhu connect anyway. The water wasn't a tsunami. It would trickle through slowly, and we'd finish our last few sections before it reached us. The concept of doing two things at the same time was apparently revolutionary to people who'd been doing everything sequentially since the dawn of their civilization. I got everyone back to the remaining pipeline stretch and introduced humanity's second greatest invention after fire, work chants. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Suddenly everyone was synchronized, energized, moving together like a machine. Morale skyrocketed. Fatigue dropped. Turns out a good rhythm is worth 10 extra workers. Meanwhile, near the river, Yanhu and Songshi were sprinting through the forest carrying bamboo logs, pushing their warriors to finish the last connections. And two warriors trailing behind them noticed something interesting. Both chiefs seemed stronger than before. Faster, more powerful, closer to breaking through from beginner to intermediate totem warriors. If they made it, they'd be strong enough to fight rank 6 beasts, which would massively boost the tribe's combat power. But the breakthrough required massive amounts of food to fuel the transformation, food we didn't have yet. Then one warrior reminded the other that I'd promised to solve the food problem. And suddenly the bamboo pipeline wasn't just about drinking water anymore. It was the first domino. Water leads to fish. Fish leads to food surplus. Food surplus leads to warrior upgrades. Warrior upgrades lead to taking back the homeland. Everything connected, everything building toward the same goal, and every single person in this tribe was starting to realize that following the weird, earless shaman from nowhere might actually be the best decision they ever made. The warriors connected the pipeline at the river and came sprinting back to camp like kids racing to see their birthday presents. The whole tribe gathered around the end of the bamboo pipe, staring at it, waiting for water to magically shoot out. Nothing happened. Instant panic. Where's the water? Tiger Girl grabbed my arm and started shaking me like a broken vending machine. Yanhu's face went through 17 shades of worry. The entire tribe started spiraling. Had we wasted 2 days of work? Was the pipeline broken? Did we mess up the connections? Yanhu was ready to march his entire warrior squad back through monster territory to check every single bamboo joint. Then they all looked at me, and I sighed. Not because anything was wrong. I sighed because I couldn't believe 53 people had collectively failed to grasp the single, most basic concept in physics. Water moves slower than sprinting warriors. They literally outran the water supply and then panicked because it hadn't beaten them home. I told them this, and every single face in the crowd cycled from terror to realization to embarrassment in perfect synchronization. Beautiful. And right on cue. Splash. Water came trickling out of the final bamboo tube, arcing through the air in a crystal-clear stream, landing right in my freshly built stone-lined reservoir. The tribe absolutely detonated. Rhino Girl threw both hands in the air screaming. People were hugging, jumping, crying. You'd think we'd just landed on the moon. But honestly, for these people, piping water 600 meters through underground bamboo tubes was their moon landing. No more armed military escorts to the river. No more carrying heavy buckets up steep hills and losing half the water to splashing. No more risking warrior lives just to get a drink. From now on, unlimited clean water flowed directly into camp 24 hours a day, and all they had to do was check the river connection every few days. I let them celebrate for a bit, then organized a proper queue for water collection. The elderly and children were already heating up the filtration station, ready to process and boil incoming water like a well-oiled production line. My tribe was developing systems, procedures, workflow. 3 days ago, these people ate raw meat with their hands and drank mud soup. Now they had a water treatment protocol. I set down some ground rules for the reservoir. Public water supply means public responsibility. Dedicated bamboo scoops only. No personal containers dipping in. Nobody contaminates it. Violators get sentenced to fetching their own water from the monster river the old-fashioned way. Everyone nodded so vigorously I thought necks might snap. Nobody wanted to go back to the dark ages of bucket hauling. Then I turned to Wood Green and said the 6 most important words of my entire 3-day reign. Bring me water. I'm taking a bath. 3 days. 3 days of alien planet grime. For clothing marinating in sweat and mysterious biological developments happening in regions I refuse to describe. I was going to stand in that stone bathing room, pour clean warm water over my head, and experience what I was fairly certain would be the single greatest moment of my life so far, including the part where I became a magical shaman king. Priorities. I told Wood Green to bring water to the bathing room and went to the cave to find clean clothes. Made myself a quick outfit by poking holes in some dried animal hides and threading thin vines through them. Fashion Week material? No. Better than 3-day-old sweat fur? Absolutely. I was standing in the bathing room waiting for Wood Green when the hide curtains swooshed open. Not Wood Green. Tiger Girl. Carrying a bucket of water with the most suspiciously innocent expression I'd ever seen on a face with fangs. I started scolding her about the men's and women's rule I just established hours ago. She immediately went full puppy eyes mode. Wood Green told me to come. He said his stomach hurt. It's not my fault. Oh, really? The man who's been perfectly healthy all day suddenly gets a stomach ache the exact moment I'm naked in a bathing room? What a miraculous coincidence. Before I could investigate further, the curtains swooshed again. Rhino Girl with another bucket. Then behind her, an absolute parade of beast girls poured in. Cat ears, fox ears, bunny ears, horse tails, sheep horns, at least a dozen of them, each more gorgeous than the last, all blushing furiously, all cramming into a bathing room designed for maybe 2 people maximum. My throat went drier than the creek bed we'd just dug up. What are you all doing here? Helping you bathe, they announced in perfect unison like a rehearsed choir of extremely attractive danger. Tiger Girl delivered her justification with a completely straight face. The shaman is too important to bathe alone. What if something dangerous happens? In a bathing room. Inside the camp. Surrounded by warriors. What exactly was going to attack me? An aggressive bar of soap. They put their buckets down and started advancing. And the thing about primitive fur clothing is that it has approximately 0 structural integrity. One enthusiastic arm movement and the laws of physics turned the whole room into something my eyes were absolutely not prepared to handle at close range. Everywhere I looked, catastrophic wardrobe malfunctions in every direction. It was like being trapped inside a nature documentary that had suddenly switched genres. My brain sent 2 messages simultaneously. This is amazing, and you will not survive this. I am one man. One regular, non-warrior, non-enhanced, extremely human man. A dozen beast girls with superhuman strength and 0 concept of personal boundaries? I'd be destroyed. Literally and figuratively. This was not a battle I could win. I shoved everyone back, slammed on my serious face, and barked orders. Out. All of you. Now. I don't need help bathing. And I told you the bathing rooms are separated by gender. This is your one warning. Next time there will be consequences. They scattered like startled rabbits. One actual bunny-eared girl almost tripped over the door flap on her way out. The room emptied in 3 seconds flat. Outside, I could practically feel Wood Green's confused disappointment radiating through the walls. That scheming old man had orchestrated this entire operation. He'd gathered every eligible beast girl in the tribe. Probably told them something about how whoever scrubbed the hardest would become the shaman's woman, and unleashed them on me like some kind of primitive dating ambush. His logic was simple. He thought I was going to pick skinny little deer girl Xia as my partner, and he was desperately trying to present better options by throwing the entire female roster at me simultaneously. I understood his reasoning. He was worried about the tribe's future bloodline, but I was not going to reward this behavior. Mental note, when the toilets get dirty, Wood Green gets toilet cleaning duty for a month. I finally bathed in peace. Scrubbed off what felt like 3 solid pounds of grime. The water turned colors I didn't know water could turn. When I emerged wearing my fresh vine-stitched outfit, I felt reborn. Like a butterfly emerging from the world's grossest cocoon. Back at camp, everyone had taken turns bathing too. Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl were waiting near the cave entrance, freshly washed, hair gleaming, skin practically glowing in the fading sunlight. They looked stunning, like two completely different people from the mud-covered chaos agents I'd been managing all day. My eyes definitely noticed. My face definitely didn't show it. I kept the stern expression locked on because they needed to understand that ambush the shaman in the shower was not an acceptable team activity. Both girls spent the rest of the evening huddled in a corner of the cave, big eyes glistening, looking at me like two puppies who'd been banished from the couch. Adorable. Effective. Not going to work on me tonight. Probably. I spotted my two beast girls squatting in a corner, drawing sad circles on the ground with their fingers, peeking at me every 3 seconds with the most pathetic expressions in existence. My anger evaporated instantly. These two were impossible to stay mad at. I was about to wave them over when dear girl Xia appeared and told me the vine collection was ready. I completely forgot about the beast girls and followed Xia to a corner of the cave piled high with every type of vine the elderly and children could drag back from the forest. Impressive haul. Behind me, I could feel Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl's jealousy radiating like heat from a campfire. Watching me smile at Xia while they were still in the doghouse was clearly killing them inside. But they didn't throw a tantrum. They just bit their lips and followed at a distance like two ghosts who'd been denied entry to heaven. I sorted through the vines looking for the perfect net-making material. Too thin would snap against a thrashing monster. Too thick wouldn't bend or tie properly. I needed the Goldilocks vine, strong, flexible, lightweight. Narrowed it down to 6 or 7 candidates, but I couldn't test their breaking strength with my noodle arms. I needed real power. I glanced over at my two exiled beast girls, still squatting miserably and drawing circles on the ground. Perfect test equipment. You two, get over here. They pointed at themselves with trembling fingers, unable to believe they were being summoned back from punishment. Then they sprinted over so fast, they almost left skid marks. Started apologizing immediately, heads down, voices small. I shut them up by planting both hands on their heads, the legendary double head pat. Tiger Girl leaned into my palm purring. Rhino Girl nuzzled forward. Both of them melted like butter on hot stone. Dear girl Xia watched from the sidelines looking so desperately envious I could practically hear her brain screaming. I wish he had a third hand. The job was simple. Each girl grabs one end of a vine, pulls as hard as possible, and we see which vine lasts longest before snapping. My two rivalry-powered testing machines went to work immediately. First vine lasted 3 seconds before exploding apart, sending both girls flying backward onto their butts. Tiger Girl bounced right up and dusted herself off. Rhino Girl stood up too, then hit me with a request so absurd my soul briefly left my body. She tugged my sleeve and whispered that falling had made her but bigger, and bigger butts meant blood energy would pool there instead of going to other muscles, which would prevent her from awakening totem power. So could I please rub it to make it smaller again? I stared at her. She stared at me. She was 100% serious. This girl genuinely believed, but size affected magical warrior potential and that a shaman massage could fix it. I explained that anatomy doesn't work that way in her, but would not interfere with her combat career. She looked unconvinced and asked me to rub it anyway, just to be safe. So I did. Because apparently this is my life now. Rubbing a rhino-horned girl's backside in a cave while her demon tail swished happily back and forth, completely oblivious to what was happening from any civilized perspective. It was soft. The tail was fun. I hated myself a little. We tested all 6 vines. The winner held for over 10 seconds under the combined pulling force of 2 girls who could individually bench press a tree, without showing any sign of tearing. Pinky finger thickness, flexible, strong as steel cable. Perfect net material. I handed it to Xia and told her to have her team collect as much of this specific type as possible. The fishing net was about to become reality, and with it, the end of the Green Sparrow tribe's food crisis. But first I needed to survive living with a tribe of beast girls who had absolutely zero understanding of personal boundaries, workplace appropriateness, or the concept that their shaman was a man with limits. Rapidly approaching limits. Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl got so desperate to stay in my good graces that they volunteered to help Xia sort vines all night. Which meant, and this was the real prize, I could finally sleep without 2 beast girls burrowing into me like warm-blooded parasites at 3 a.m. I practically skipped back to my sleeping area, lay down, rested for a bit, then entered meditation to grind more magic math problems. The difficulty had scaled up to basic high school geometric sequences now, which sounds intimidating until you remember I have a college degree and these ancient mystical challenges were literally easier than my 10th grade homework. Crushed every problem, boosted my magic reserves by another 50%. I could now fire off 8 healing spells in a row instead of 5. My power was growing at a rate that would make every shaman in history weep with jealousy. All because the secret to ultimate magical strength was algebra, and nobody in this world had ever invented algebra. Then I spotted something exciting in the meditation void, a structural weakness in the fire spell. 2 of its 15 symbols could merge into one. I performed magical surgery on it immediately. The upgraded fire spell went from sad cigarette lighter to actual fireball the size of a baby's fist. Still not exactly a meteor strike, but compared to the pathetic little flame the original produced, this was like going from a candle to a flamethrower. Progress. Tried optimizing the healing and energy boost spells too, but couldn't find any matching symbol combinations yet. Filed those under future projects and moved on to something critically important, learning to make magic bone cards. The tribe only had 5, and that was nowhere near enough. Every warrior needed at least 1 healing card for emergencies. If I hadn't randomly been present when Mao got gutted by a pig, he'd be dead right now. I pulled out the old shaman scrolls and studied the manufacturing process by firelight. The recipe was straightforward in theory. Take polished monster bone, carve spell patterns into it while simultaneously channeling magic energy, and complete the entire inscription in one unbroken flow. Stop midway and the card becomes a useless dud. The pattern size and smoothness determined how well the magic flowed. Too big and the energy jams up, too small and it fizzles. Goldilocks precision required. I memorized everything but decided to wait until morning for the actual crafting attempt. Making delicate magical artifacts by flickering campfire light seemed like a recipe for wasted materials and regret. Fell asleep studying. Woke up the next morning to something miraculous. Sunlight on my face, birds chirping outside, and nobody lying on top of me. No horn in my ribs. No tongue on my cheek. No snot bubbles. First uninterrupted sleep since arriving in this world. Keeping the beast girls busy all night was the greatest strategic decision of my shamanic career. After washing my face with actual clean piped water, still felt amazing. I chewed on a twig because toothbrushes don't exist here and my teeth felt like they were wearing sweaters. Added dental hygiene to the civilization to-do list right after food crisis and don't get conquered. Walked over to the vine sorting area and found what looked like a hurricane had hit a jungle. Vines everywhere, tangled and chaotic, like my old husky back on Earth had gotten into the supply closet. But tucked neatly in one corner sat 40 or 50 perfectly selected vines, each 2 to 3 meters long, exactly the right type. And draped across this tidy pile were 3 beast girls, tiger girl, rhino girl, and deer girl, tangled together in a sleeping heap, arms wrapped around each other, legs thrown over bodies, snoring in perfect 3-part harmony, mouths opening, and closing like adorable little piglets dreaming about food. These 3 rivals who spent every waking moment competing, jealousing, and one-upping each other had apparently worked through the entire night, sorting vines and passed out cuddled together like a litter of kittens. Mortal enemies by day, sleepover buddies by exhaustion. I stood there watching them for a long moment, smiling like an idiot, and thought, this weird, chaotic, ridiculous little tribe might actually be worth saving. Waking up 3 beast girls who worked all night is like trying to restart 3 dead batteries. I shook them. Rhino girl rolled over, grabbed my leg like a body pillow, and went right back to sleep. Tiger girl yawned and collapsed without opening her eyes. Only deer girl actually woke up, immediately turned red because I'd seen her sleeping face, and started being shy about it. Classic Sia. I peeled rhino girl off my leg, yanked tiger girl up by her ears, and threatened them with no food. That word, food, hit like an electric shock. Both of them shot upright, grabbed my arms, and started begging to work. These girls had starved during the escape from their homeland, sometimes going days without eating. The memory of hunger was branded into their bones. I felt like a terrible sweatshop boss exploiting child labor, Except this was 10,000 years before labor laws existed, so technically I was ahead of my time. I taught them to twist two thin vines together into one thicker rope, double the strength, monster-proof durability. Simple concept. 3 beast girls figured it out instantly. We twisted all 50 vines into 25 cords. Then I showed them how to weave them crosswise, tying knots at every intersection. Within an hour, we had a finished net, 2.5 meters wide, 4 meters long, with 4 centimeter square holes. My first fishing net. My first hunting trap. My first step toward ending the food crisis forever. Yenhu found us because I'd missed breakfast, and the tribe panicked. He walked in, saw the net, and his face went through confusion, curiosity, then barely contained excitement when I told him this was the tool that would solve everything. He stared at it trying to understand how woven vines could feed a tribe. Fair question. I carried the net outside where the whole tribe was waiting, worried sick because their shaman had vanished into the cave. Relief washed over everyone when they saw me alive, then immediately got replaced by intense curiosity about the strange vine thing Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl were holding between them. I spread the net flat on the ground and set up a demonstration. Told Yenhu to pretend he was a charging monster and run straight at me. He pointed at himself, confused and scared. This 2-meter titan, who punches craters into trees, was genuinely worried about accidentally hurting his own shaman. I told him to trust me. The fishing net era was about to begin, and this tribe had no idea their entire world was about to change. Again, for like the 5th time this week. I told Yenhu to charge at me full speed. The man hesitated for about half a second, then turned into a human missile. 50 meters between us disappeared in 3 seconds flat. And let me tell you, watching a 2-meter tiger warrior sprint at you with genuine predator intensity is not something you get used to. The pressure rolling off him was suffocating, like standing in front of an incoming freight train made of muscle and fury. I suddenly understood on a primal level why these totem warriors were the backbone of every tribe. That aura alone could flatten 4 or 5 normal people without him lifting a finger. But then something wild happened inside me. My shaman energy stirred on its own, and Yenhu's terrifying pressure just dissolved, like it hit an invisible wall and evaporated. Even crazier, I felt my power pushing back against his, and I had this gut feeling that if I wanted to, I could shut down his totem abilities entirely. Was it because I was the shaman of his tribe, and his power came from MY tribe's totem? No time to philosophize. The man was 3 feet away and closing fast. Now, I screamed at my 2 beast girls. They yanked the net up between us like a curtain made of woven steel. Yenhu slammed into it at full velocity with a thunderous boom. The net stretched tight, every vine screaming under tension. The entire tribe held their breath. Not a single strand broke. The silence that followed was deafening. Every warrior in the audience knew those vines. They used them as rope all the time and could snap them with casual effort. But twisted together into a net? Suddenly, the same flimsy material was stopping the strongest warrior in the tribe at a dead sprint. Their brains were visibly buffering. I had Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl wrap the net around Yenhu and told him to break free. He grabbed the mesh, flexed, strained. The net groaned and stretched, but held firm. He couldn't believe it. So he got serious. Sucked in a massive breath, veins popping across his arms, chest tattoo blazing crimson. Full totem power unleashed. The net started tearing, fibers pulling apart, green inner strands exposed under insane force. I yelled at him to stop before he destroyed my only net. He powered down immediately, panting, staring at the woven vines with an expression usually reserved for encountering gods. If the tribe's strongest warrior needed his magical battle mode just to start ripping this thing, then low-ranked monsters didn't stand a chance. My net could hold beasts that would take multiple warriors to fight head-on. Hunting just went from suicidal melee combat to lure it into the trap and watch it struggle. The tribe was catatonic. One warrior asked his buddy to punch him to check if he was dreaming. The buddy punched him way too hard. The first guy screamed. The puncher confirmed, "Yep, we're definitely awake. This net is actually real." Both of them stood there vibrating with disbelief while the rest of the tribe went through identical reality checks. I'd spent one morning weaving vines with 3 sleepy beast girls and produced a weapon that fundamentally altered the balance of power between humans and monsters. Back on Earth, I couldn't even get a promotion. Here I was rewriting the rules of an entire civilization before lunch. After the net demo, everyone swarmed around it like it was a holy relic. Grown warriors were reaching out with trembling fingers, touching the woven vines like they might shatter if pressed too hard. I told them to relax. It's a hunting tool, not a sacred artifact. They started stroking it and babbling about how impossible it was that simple vines could stop their strongest fighter. Yin, who climbed out of the net looking like a man who'd just found religion. He loved the thing, but immediately started worrying it couldn't hold mid-level monsters. Mao smacked him down. Be grateful it handles low-level ones. That alone saves us from half our hunting injuries. I had to jump in and explain the blindingly obvious concept that if one net isn't enough, you use 2 nets. Or 3. Or 10. Stack enough nets, and you could trap literally anything. Their eyes went wide like I'd just unlocked a cheat code in reality. Yin, who gave me a thumbs up, a gesture he'd learned from me yesterday, and called me a genius. The bar for genius in this world was spectacularly low. Songshur asked how I came up with it. I told them I got the idea from watching spiders catch bugs, a few flimsy threads trapping prey many times their size. Everyone nodded like I'd delivered ancient wisdom from the heavens, when really I was just recycling the exact same inspiration that cavemen on Earth had used thousands of years ago. But hey, if it works, it works. Then I did something important. I gave dear girl Xia public credit. Told everyone that without her leading the vine collection, the net wouldn't exist. The tribe turned to look at her, and this girl who'd spent her entire life being invisible practically short-circuited. She turned crimson, dove behind my back, and whispered that she hadn't really done anything. But the damage was done. Everyone's eyes were on her, and those eyes were full of envy. Yinhu laughed and suggested giving Xiao a whole lamb leg as a reward. I approved. Mao sliced one off and shoved it into her arms before she could refuse. She stood there clutching a bloody leg of meat almost as tall as she was, deer antlers retreating into her hair with pure overwhelm, trying to give it back to me because it's too much. I refused to take it and instead promoted her on the spot. She'd learned how to weave nets by watching me. Now it was her permanent job. Lead the elderly and children, gather vines, mass-produce nets. The tribe's entire food future would rest on her tiny shoulders. Her eyes lit up brighter than I'd ever seen them. For the first time since her parents died, someone had told this orphan girl that she mattered, that she had a purpose, that the whole tribe needed her. She hugged that lamb leg like a trophy and promised she'd make more nets than I could ever use. Meanwhile, Wood Green was watching Xia with a conflicted expression, grudgingly admitting she was useful, but still internally agonizing about her hips being too narrow for optimal baby production. That man's one-track mind was going to be the death of me. And of course, Tiger Girl and Rhino Girl couldn't let Xia have the spotlight for more than 45 seconds. Both of them latched onto my arms like heat-seeking koalas, whining that they helped with the vines too. They deserved important jobs. They wanted to contribute. My arms were being shaken so hard my teeth were rattling, and all I could think was, I've created a monster. 3 monsters, actually, all competing for my attention, my praise, and apparently my entire skeletal structure. I gave both beast girls their reward, meat they were already going to get, and a patrol job they were already doing. They acted like I'd handed them the keys to the kingdom. Their fathers watched this exchange, looked at each other, and simultaneously shook their heads in despair. Their daughters had just been sold nothing for the price of pure enthusiasm, and they were too happy to notice. Dear girl Xia was behind them, literally trembling with suppressed laughter, face burgundy from the effort of not exploding. I announced we were heading out to test the net in real hunting conditions. Every warrior's eyes caught fire. I grabbed a chunk of cooked meat, stuck it in my mouth like a cigar, and marched toward the forest with 16 totem warriors carrying my vine masterpiece behind me. On the way out, I shouted back at my 2 guard dogs to remember their critical mission. Both girls snapped ramrod straight and saluted with the intensity of soldiers receiving nuclear launch codes. Behind them, Xia finally cracked, distributing her lamb leg to the elderly and children while organizing the next wave of net production, all while shaking with barely contained giggles. On the march, I had the warriors chop bamboo and split it into thin strips. Nobody understood why, but nobody asked anymore. The tribe had learned that questioning my random requests just delayed whatever miracle was coming next. Yin, who assumed we were heading to the riverbank to hunt the monsters drinking there, and started panicking about breaking the watering hole truce and getting swarmed by angry beasts. Song Shi joined the worry party, painting vivid pictures of dozens of enraged creatures charging us simultaneously. I realized they thought inventing a net had made me suicidally overconfident and that I was about to declare war on the entire river ecosystem. I had to stop walking and clarify. No, I was not picking a fight with every monster at the watering hole. There was a different, much easier target. They stared at me with giant question marks floating above their heads. I led them around the final bend to the spot where we dug those mysterious extra channels and the big pool a couple days ago, the ones nobody understood the purpose of. The area had completely transformed. Remember that mysterious pool and those 2 channels I had everyone dig a couple days ago? The ones nobody understood? The ones Yin who asked about and I just smiled and said, "You'll see?" Well, surprise. My evil genius fish trap had been working perfectly while everyone was busy laying pipes and learning the alphabet. The wide channel on the upstream side let fish swim in from the river. The narrow channel on the downstream side was too small for them to escape through. And the pool itself had flowing water and food particles drifting in from the river, so the fish had zero reason to leave. I'd basically built a 5-star all-inclusive resort for fish, except checkout involved being eaten. When we arrived, the pool was absolutely boiling with activity. Hundreds of half-meter-long double-whisker river beasts thrashing around in there like a living soup. Yin, who spotted the whiskers, shoved me behind him, and the entire warrior squad formed a human fortress around me screaming about dangerous water monsters. I had to physically wave them down and explain that those monsters were lunch. Song Shi's brain finally reconnected to the conversation from 2 days ago when I'd asked if the fish were edible. You could literally watch the puzzle pieces clicking together behind his eyes. The pool, the channels, the net, my weird questions about fish, everything suddenly making sense at once. I had 4 warriors grab the net's corners, toss it into the churning pool, and wait. 10 seconds of silence. Everyone was scratching their heads wondering why I'd gone quiet. Then I screamed, "Pull!" and 4 totem warriors heaved with everything they had. The net didn't budge at first. It was so heavy with fish that 4 superhuman warriors with glowing chest tattoos had to activate their magical power just to drag it upward. The vine ropes stretched taut enough to play guitar on. When the net finally broke the surface, the pool erupted into chaos. Fish thrashing, water spraying everywhere, and inside the net, at least a dozen massive half-meter river beasts flopping and panicking. On Earth, catching one fish that size would fuel a fisherman's bragging for 6 months. We'd just scooped up a dozen in 10 seconds without anyone getting wet, getting hurt, or even breaking a sweat. Yin Hu and the warriors just stood there, mouths hanging open, brains completely offline. They'd spent their entire lives risking death to hunt land monsters for scraps of meat, and I'd just shown them you could pull unlimited protein out of a hole in the ground using woven vines and patience. No combat, no injuries, no danger. Just drop, wait, pull, eat. The food crisis wasn't just solved. It was obliterated.